There are some realizations in the industry with the no cam.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
like, I guess we need cams. Yeah.
They're like, it's smooth as butter, shoots 150 feet per second.
HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Deer Grow.
Man, we've been using Deer Grow products for a long time. The Plot Start and Plot Boost, more recently Plot Till. Now we've got 3 new liquid fertilizers that have been put in the mix that will cover everything we could want for a food plot program.
It's huge, man. The more food plotting we do, it's like, man, the liquids just make sense. Like whether it's herbicides or the Plot Start and Plot Boost, and now the fertilizers getting mixed in. It's like, man, I can combine all of those in certain cases and do less passes for more results.
I mean, it's all about efficiency. I mean, like you said, less passes. If you're out there treating your beans with glyphosate in the summertime, you can mix in this fertilizer, do that all at once. You have the boost in there to help some metabolism. It's all about efficiency when we're talking about food plots. And really the big difference on these liquid fertilizers is you're bypassing some of these soil limitations, pH limitations, the soil type. In a lot of cases, we talk about dry fertilizers only being available for 17% of what you put down in the first year. These liquid fertilizers straight into the plant are 90% available in the first year. Huge difference in what you're going to see in growth.
It's huge. And so right now you can use code HUNTR15 for 15% off any of the Deer Grow products on their website. And as always,
better food plots, bigger deer. And we're back.
Ayo.
HUNTR Podcast.
Ayo. Ayo.
Episode 190. 10 from the 2 hundo.
Yes, sir.
That'll happen here.
We're in a good range here.
Like right before hunting season.
As far as like gross scores are concerned. We're in a sweet spot.
Yeah, we're in like it walks.
It's getting better every
week. It walks
every
by,
week.
it's dead.
Yeah. Yeah, 190.
190, it walks by, it's dead.
Yeah. So, well, hey, thank you. Wherever you guys are coming to us from, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, we appreciate you guys being here and listening from week to week. If you've written us on, I was going to say, give us a like, follow, or subscribe, whatever's appropriate for the channel. One of those will give you like a notification whenever we drop these episodes. But it's Tuesday night, 6 p.m. every week, Eastern time. And if you've written us on the website or Instagram DM, those are the 2 that we try to be responsive on. I know I'm at least a few. You're pretty good on Instagram.
I've been trying to stay up with them.
I'm a week or 2 behind on the website and stuff. But if you guys want to get a hold of us, you can that way. We see some of the comments too and stuff. So we appreciate you reaching out. Appreciate your patience. And here we go.
Here we go.
It seems like that gets longer every week. Am
I
I putting more stuff in there?
I think at some point.
My little opener there?
At some point.
Thanks, guys.
June 27th. If you're listening to this, it's July, right? Oh my God.
Jeremy.
That's crazy.
Dude, I've got some good bucks showing up. I threw 5 cameras out. Just, I know where the spots are.
In the classic spots.
I've got my go-to, the most productive summer spots.
Yeah.
I put some trophy rock out in earlier, right?
Yeah, April.
Pretty early, and then I went back out and freshed them up with some Lucky Buck. They like at
I like Lucky
apple
Buck
flavor. Day 2 and 3. I mean, I've got so first of all, last night I had, and Nick and I were just discussing, we haven't named him yet, but the buck that I have been saying for a while now is like I never see him during the season, and chances are I won't see him, This season will probably be exactly the same, but
he summers on your property for sure.
He continues to live, which is every year's amazing. It's like I had him at 3 for the first time, probably as mid-50s.
Mid-50s, yeah.
150, mid-50s.
All over 70 last year.
Disappeared in September. 4-year-old. I think 170. Is that what you said? Yeah.
Yeah, all over.
All over 170. Disappeared again. It's what he does. Like mid-August, September. Disappears. He's going somewhere. Showed up last night.
Yeah, probably 80.
And we don't know. He's halfway along. This is probably earlier than I've ever got him, but he's studly looking.
Yeah.
Probably pushing 80, I'd agree.
I mean, he's got to be going to somewhere that's not getting hunted that hard. I mean, that's the only way that deer of that caliber is walking consistently because it's in a very fragmented habitat. Like, I mean, he crosses through opening areas.
Yeah.
So he's got to be going somewhere that's not getting hunted real hard.
Yep. And so now it's my mission to
and he's on like the
figure out where that might
fringe
be.
of your property.
Oh yeah, it's an outlier.
Yeah, which makes it tough. But I think you got to dedicate at least a bunch of cameras to trying to pick him up because you've only ever had him on that camera, right? Yeah. So you've got to kind of start to figure out how you can pick him up on some of these other spots.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go meet some neighbors.
You had that heavy 8-point that showed up. That's gonna be a good deer,
dude. We haven't really debriefed since then. I drove around Sunday night.
Sunday.
After that, it kind of got a midday rain. I'm going to say I saw 4 or 5 bucks that were like over 4 years old.
Over 4.
Several that I knew.
Mm-hmm.
That buck that Dad ran over with the tractor tire.
Mm-hmm. That's the one you passed.
The shed, anyways.
Yeah.
That I passed.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Found him.
You should be a 5-year-old this year.
4 or 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure how old he is, but the big clean 8-point.
Mm-hmm. Heavy.
Saw him with an even older, just toad looking, but he's not far.
Yeah.
As far along.
And it's so weird to see. Like, obviously, that big one is like, I mean,
pretty far along.
Yeah. I mean, he's just going to throw basically time length at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But some of these deer, like, are just beams and brows still.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to catch up. Like, it's not like they're just going to finish weird, but it's just, a lot of that, I think, is when they drop, just to start that repair and then start that growth side of things. But, yeah, it's crazy to see, like, I have deer in the same camera picture where it's like that deer looks like he just started. The other one's like finished.
Yeah. It's even cooler to compare the same buck from year to year to year.
Yeah.
Which I was kind of doing last night. I mean, there's probably some pictures I haven't turned over yet, but just to see.
I was at a wedding this weekend. We had a pretty interesting discussion about, because everybody's starting to see velvet and they're like, man, look at this buck. And they're like, man.
Whose wedding?
My cousin's.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And up at the Grayson house, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Coincidentally, everybody got COVID. Which I haven't heard
at
about
the wedding
for
or?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
I haven't heard about, and I'm, I would assume by now it's kind of, because that was on Saturday. It's Thursday, like.
I thought we took care of that.
Yeah, no, my mom, my kids are probably killing each other in the room out there because she was going to have them for today, and she's got COVID. Like 5 or 6 of my cousins have COVID. Yeah, it's weird. Like she wrote me and was like, yeah, I can't take the kids. I've got COVID. I took a bunch of tests and I went to, what do you call it? Not emergency room. What's the other thing?
Yeah.
Med Express. Mm-hmm. To get like another test. And she's like, yeah, they're all positive. I was like, what the hell? I was like, I haven't even heard of COVID in a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Apparently still out there.
Who is patient X?
I don't know.
Did the bride and groom get it?
I don't know. They leave on their honeymoon this week, so.
Yeah, they're doing their own quarantining anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as they get there before the
But
travel.
it sounds like everybody's feeling pretty shitty from it.
Sucks.
Yeah, like fevers,
I haven't heard
coughs.
anything recently here either.
Yeah. It's like.
It's probably allergies.
Maybe. Yeah, but I mean, it was like my entire table. I'm like, fuck.
Dude, knock on wood.
I feel pretty good,
I
though.
haven't been sick. I'm on a pretty good stretch here of not getting sick.
Yeah.
Usually I get like turkey season, like April, May. I get hit with something pretty hard.
Nothing.
Skipped it this year.
Yeah. No, I
Which
just
I'm
had
grateful
like
for.
allergy shit, but yeah.
So anyways, you were talking about velvet.
So anyways, we're talking about velvet, and like, everybody starts showing pictures of like deer they're seeing. They're like, look at this one, man. He's got 2 months of growing, and I'm like, yeah, he's basically done. And it's hard for people to understand, like, just because it's end of June, and a deer likely is going to continue to grow through mid-August before it really starts to calcify. Like those deer aren't going to keep grow. Like it's not exponential growth basically. So if that deer looks like he's fully grown, it's probably fully grown. Like he's just going to calcify earlier, like in the work. So I always think that's funny because like I'll get somebody else send me a picture like 2 months of growth. Like look at this thing. I'm
That's
like
deer
he's
misconceptions.
done.
Yeah,
that deer's done growing. Like he's not going to put on anything else. And you could tell, like, normally you're looking for, like, those balls at the end of, like, their beams or at the end of their tines that shows, like, they've got growth to fill out.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I have seen quite a few bucks, and I'm like, damn, by mid-July, that deer's done. He's not growing anymore.
Yeah. I think that's generally the case. I think most that I see are typically about done by mid-August.
Yeah, I mean,
no. Forgive
mid-July?
me, earlier. Yeah, like mid to end of July.
They usually start calcifying sometime in that end of July, early August, depending on where you're at. Like when people listen all across the country, it's going to differ. But they'll start calcifying end of July, early August through mid-August. I mean, I get a ton of deer that are rubbed out by the third week of August. Like, when it's like, oh, we could see like third week of August, they're rubbed out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, but I mean, from now, you're listening to this beginning of June, from now till usually the end of July, well, at least mid-July, you're in what I would consider the most intense growing portion, which is like you're at an inch a day type of thing.
I mean, we're at a point now. It's like you get cameras out. you can pretty much tell who they are or generally what they're gonna be.
I know, it's weird. I've got a few that I'm not, and maybe they're different deer, and that's why. But like, I'm struggling to understand who they are.
Oh, me too.
I'm like,
dude, that young one I showed you the other day, that's a friggin'
yeah, and you don't know that
Magnum.
deer?
And I mean, I'll have to look back and really analyze because I think he's
3.
He's probably 3. He's 2 or 3. Probably 3.
Yeah. I mean, if he's 3, even from 2 to 3, it'll probably be tough to figure him out.
Why do you say that?
Just because I think, that could be a massive jump from essentially 40% potential to 70%
me off guard. I was like,
potential.
holy cow, like that's a friggin'
Yeah.
show Nick. See what he thinks.
Yeah. So, yeah, tough. And I mean, obviously, summer deer. Like, I've got one deer that I probably know who he is, but I mean, he looks like he's 220 pounds last night.
He's pretty good there, doesn't he? That deer's all over 150, if not. Yeah.
Yep.
I think so. Yeah, he probably is a 3-year-old. Framey sucker.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, those are the deer that have giant potential as long as they don't get killed at 3.
Prussia brows.
Yeah. So
deer like that are why we got Kevin Mullet in here.
So, yeah, I mean, it's funny, but you kind of see that across the board. So, yeah, I mean, and we had,
talk to me about your rain situation.
I was so worked up last night about it.
I felt bad.
I'm just tired of it at this point. It's just kind of like whatever happens. Like, at one point in time,
we're not gonna let you fail. I'll bring you out to my farm before.
Well, it's not that, and I mean, it is the money aspect. It's more of like there's a lot of work to put in, like 12 acres of beans, and like good chance that I'm gonna be struggle bussing.
This is mainly Kentucky you're worried about?
Yeah, I think Ohio. Well, the problem in Ohio is I defense it because it's small acreage, so I don't know, and I haven't seen it. I don't have cameras down in that bottom to look at it. It's got plenty of rain, so I'm not worried about that. Kentucky's been the dry spot.
Ohio, you're good.
I think, well, as long as they haven't jumped in the fence and ate all the beans.
Okay.
Which is possible.
But rain-wise, you're okay.
Yep, rain-wise, I'm good. But we didn't get any yesterday, which we were supposed to get 0.8 or 0.9 yesterday. We didn't get a damn drop.
Those will hurt.
Just like completely
just
missed.
Your morale. Just to think that it's coming and then for it not
At one point, it was like 1.2 inches in Kentucky. I'm like, this is it. And I'm not shitting you. I almost took a screenshot. I almost took a screenshot and posted it, and I was just too mad. As it's like approaching the farm, it just does this. And I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. This is not possible. And it's done that like 3 days in a row of like potential storms. And really the only thing we caught yesterday was like 2 or 3 like stray showers ended up like popping up and going over it in 3 minutes or 4 minutes. So I don't know. I mean, the saving grace in Kentucky, at least, is I'm in a very low deer density area. And so even with those beans slow to grow, I don't think the deer are going to be able to jump on them enough to knock them back. But who knows? I mean, I've got cameras up. I see deer eating the beans. I still see beans, like plenty of them there. They're just, 3 inches tall after 3 weeks, 4 weeks almost at this point.
Which is about right. Maybe a little shorter than you think, but.
So, yeah, I mean, fortunately, I had good moisture when I drilled them. But, yeah, so we'll see. I mean, it's it was just yesterday was supposed to be the saving grace. Yeah, and we just didn't get it. We'll see. If by the time this drops, we're supposed to have another one come through. Yeah. We'll see. And then next week, it looks like we for sure break the mold. In fact, it's supposed to rain like all damn week. If you're listening to this on a Tuesday, it's supposed to rain like Tuesday to Saturday. Yeah. Across
pretty
the
good looking weather pattern.
Yeah. Hopefully. So maybe. Again, in that same time frame, I want to get out there and spray all my new deer growth fertilizers and Gly on it. And it's like, when do I do it? Because I don't want to do it too early and not get the rain. If I wait too long, I'm going to get into a point where it just keeps raining, and then I can't do it.
Well, base it on your weed competition more than probably anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, I went and sprayed Monday.
Yep,
and
Monday.
It was perfect because we were coming out of that drought. We got a few decent rains, including one really good one on Sunday, like I said. And so Monday was perfect. I had good soil moisture. I was right at the point there where weeds were starting to kind of. There's a lot of beans in there. I'm really happy with, and also the corn. And the corn has even better weed prevention because of the atrazine we put down. But I'm generally pretty happy with all of it. Even the beans, we put at a really heavy rate, and even missed a small area and stuff because
still look good
dad was drilling, But yeah, So I hit it with the Glide, 1 quart per acre, and then also 3-18-18 on the beans and the Nitro Grow
on the corn.
Yep. And so, I mean, due to everything after that rain, and then I think we got another one yesterday. Like everything's, I think, fixing to explode. I had a good trip, dude. Just a successful spraying paired with getting some cameras out, paired with, like I told you, I saw all those bucks that night that I was like, friggin'.
There they are.
Here we go.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's going to happen fast.
Did you see? I was dying. Winky's obviously putting out a bunch of videos with Dream Farm and everything he's doing over there. He posted a video yesterday about wanting to spray his beans, and he's like talking about it. It's like his beans looks like a straight grass. It's all weeds, like completely weeds, and he's happy with it. He's like, yeah. He's like, you know, maybe a little grassy, but he's like, there's definitely beans in here. I was like, dude, that's a grass field with a few beans in it.
I know 2 of the plots look really good. The third one is a smaller plot, and it had a ton of like Johnson grass and stuff trying to come up when I was drilling. So like, you know, there's beans in there, but I mean, I'm not nearly as concerned about that one if I have to come in and do, you know, cereal grains or brassica over it. It's the bigger fields are the ones that I'm hoping from a destination side I'm able to maintain, and they don't look weedy right now. Yeah. I'll probably spray, if you're listening to this on what, 2nd, I think is it? July 2nd, something. The 9th. Okay. So you're listening on the 9th. I probably sprayed just before this podcast. That's my plan. We're going to be in Kentucky around the 4th. So I'll just have to dodge rain if we get it, which we don't. So yeah. So, you know, that part of the season where it's just like, yeah, you just kind of keep going. I mean, hell, before we know it, it's going to be fall plots.
Oh, soon. I sprayed fall plots the other day. So I'll have the option, I guess, to either drill or turn those over. Mid-July is when I like to get mine in. Yeah, I got to figure out. We were talking about it earlier. I didn't have as much luck with brassicas last year as I thought I would. Like, they just didn't eat them that much. I don't know. You know, and that's crushed mine in September.
Yeah,
it was dry.
Yeah, and here they did, but in Kentucky we weren't dry, and I mean I had giant brassica throughout almost the entire season, and they just didn't really touch it. So I might go back in and think about just annual clovers and peas and oats or wheat or something like that.
Yeah.
So just from small kill plots, but again, all determining of what happens with these beans.
Yeah.
Here in the next week to 2 weeks.
Yep. See how the weather goes and make decisions as we go here.
Yeah. I think we'll be good. So anyways, we got a guest today.
Sure do. We've got Joel Burham. I'm pretty sure I'm saying that's right. So Whitetail Fit is his handle on Instagram. And pretty sure he's got a YouTube channel and stuff too. I kind of have just been watching his stuff on Instagram and staying in touch. That's how it's kind of been going here recently as we connect with people on social. And I was like, dude, this guy's putting out some cool stuff here. And he's potentially bigger than I am, like more jacked. So I was like, I felt it's like at the gym where you got to go.
It's like a challenge.
Well, no, you have to acknowledge it's a defense mechanism. Yeah, you got to go and just be like, dude, better calm down here, make us all look bad. Yeah. So I was like, I got to reach out to Joel.
You got to acknowledge him. You got to
make something happen here.
Interesting.
Got to have him on our team as opposed to
the other team.
Oh yeah, I talked to Johnny the other day. He wants us to have Clint Casper on. You know who that is?
Working class guy, the former one.
I think Clint that's how he phrased it too, but I didn't make the connection.
I think at one point Clint was involved with working class.
That's what Johnny said.
I'm pretty sure. If I'm thinking of the right guy.
I think you're right. You are. I had heard of him previously because Yoder was recovering a deer for him last year when we were trying to sync up, and so that's where it's like, the name sounds familiar.
Yeah, I remember he killed that big one. Yeah, he was on one of Bo's podcasts too.
Yeah, and he killed one. I'm not sure in what state, but a spot in stock. You've seen the video, I'm sure. It takes him 3 or 4 hours to slide in on his butt. This big deer's down in a bottom.
Yeah, I don't know if I saw it. I probably would to see it, but
anyways,
I remember the Ohio one last year.
Maybe that was it.
That was a giant that Yoder found for him.
Okay, I might have been the same deer. I'm not sure, but we'll sync up with him at some point. But
interesting. So we've been kind of bouncing around with everybody, and so you talked with Joel yesterday.
Yeah,
you're like, hey, we're going to shoot a podcast.
Yeah, I was like, hey, I wanted to connect anyways. We're shooting tomorrow, so let's just hop on.
Yeah, perfect. Well, cool. Let's bring Joel in. All right, Joel, we got you.
I think so. What's up, boys?
What's up,
man? Hey, man. Well, we appreciate you jumping on here and joining us this morning on a kind of a last minute note, basically from Jared last night.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate y'all reaching out.
Is that Hoyt I see sitting back here? It's a little blurry on my end.
Oh yeah. We got the Hoyt.
Is that a
We got the
Defiant?
Hoyt. This is the no. So this is the Alpha X.
So very cool.
Yeah, that's the bow that I'm rocking for probably this next Total Archery Challenge. I just got back from South Dakota Total Archery Challenge. I shot the RX-8 at that shoot pretty much the whole time. I brought the Alpha X as well, but for whatever reason, I was just holding better with the RX-8, so I shot that bow. But we're going out to the Colorado Total Archery Challenge, not this weekend, but the next weekend. So probably going to rock with the Alpha X at that shoot. So I just love shooting bows, so I'm just always tinkering.
Right on. Dude, they're putting on quite a few of those now, right? Do you know how many TAC events they put on per year now?
I'm not entirely sure, but you're right. It's a lot. Like there's a lot of events, and every single event is like stacked full with people. I want to say there's like at the Oklahoma shoot, like 3,000 people or something that come to that thing.
Wow.
I mean, and that's like one of their smaller shoots compared to Utah. I think it's even more. That business has completely exploded over the last 5, 6, 7 years.
I can't imagine how many people come through Seven Springs is the Pennsylvania one.
A lot.
'Cause I think it was one of the original shows.
It was.
It was sold out months in advance. We had to like pull some strings to even get in.
Yeah. You shot Utah, right?
I did. That's the one at Snowbird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Utah, usually they've had it at Snowbird before. So Utah has bounced around between Snowbird, Snow Basin. What's that super popular ski resort that I always draw a blank on it? But
yeah, I don't even think I knew that there was one in Oklahoma or South Dakota, frankly.
I knew the South Dakota one.
Where's it at in South Dakota?
Not sure. He was just at it. Joel,
it is at Terry Peak.
Okay.
It's a ski resort. It's kind of like just outside of Sturgis.
Okay. So Western South Dakota.
Yeah.
Are they all? I mean, obviously Oklahoma is not, but I would assume is everything else at a ski resort? I mean, Seven Springs. I know Boyce Mountain in Michigan. Like it seems like they're all at ski resorts.
That's sweet, man. Are they based out of Utah? Is that like a Salt Lake City company?
So Sean is based out of good question, actually. I think Sean is based out of Utah. So Sean DeGray is the owner of Total Archery Challenge. Him and his wife, I want to say they are based out of Utah, but I think the shoots started, I want to say they started out east, didn't they? Like you're saying in PA, maybe?
I think it was one of the originals.
PA, Michigan, and Vermont, maybe.
Oh, wow. Awesome. It's been fun to see that growth. I mean, dude, there's some other things like that. I think we as a community of hunters are just longing for like ways to connect with each other, and like those small things have turned into big things pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
The Mobile Hunter Roadshow is another one. Have you been to any of those, Joel?
No, I haven't. What's that?
So I think it's its own company, just like TAC
is.
I don't know if they're partnered on every show, but I know that Lone Wolf Custom Gears is a part of those too in some capacity.
A lot of the saddle companies are, I think, as well.
Are they?
I think so.
I don't know for sure. I guess maybe I'm assuming that because one of them's hosted at the DeQuisto's farm. That's the one we're going to in Iowa.
But there's the Pennsylvania
There's one in Pennsylvania too.
There's another one.
I would assume so. You can't have a Mobile Hunter Roadshow without also having saddles.
Yeah, I would say.
In fairness.
Yeah.
In fairness.
There's other ones. Like there's a Mobile Hunter Expo.
Mm-hmm. You're right. I think it's a different thing.
Yeah. Which I've seen that too. So, I mean, that's all.
But those shows have exploded too. I think they're pretty well attended.
Well, I think what's cool about it is you look at like those mobile hunter shows and you look at the Total Archery Challenge, and it's basically people have figured out like, hey, these are the things that make you successful. Like if you can go out and shoot these courses, like you can go out and kill an animal with a bow, right? Or if you go and look at these different mobile hunter type tips, I mean, the more we talk about it is, if you're mobile, you're able to be more efficient from a hunting standpoint. And so I think these businesses have done an awesome job by being able to piggyback on that. But it's, if you talk about any of those groups, everybody will tell you like it's a blast. Like it's not, unlike
I think that's why people are going.
Because it's just fun.
Because it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's just fun to connect. I
It
mean,
is.
because I don't think I shot the Seven Springs one, and you know, it is lifelike. And if I were to do that consistently, I would probably help. But like a 1 day thing is maybe it exposes a weakness. You know, maybe I'm like, ooh, like this is weird when I'm now that I'm in kind of a real life scenario. But
I don't know.
Well, your angled shots and stuff like that that those courses provide, you know, there's a lot of different stuff that I've found, especially I like doing these shoots, you know, with it. You got South Dakota and then this Colorado shoot. We're coming out, you know, we're getting dang close to season. I start antelope hunting mid-August.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So with these shoots coming up, it's like, it really gives you an opportunity to fine tune and dial in your setups where, you know, just sitting at home on the range, like shooting at your backyard range, you've kind of shot the same shots over and over, or your practice range at the local archery shoot, whatever it might be. You've stood in the same spot and shot the same target that over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
And while that is like obviously amazing repetition, nothing beats like getting out on a side hill and shooting a deer target at 37 yards that's got, you know, a tree limb here and a rock here, or you got to shoot over a tree limb. You know, you got to kind of take into consideration the trajectory of your arrow, stuff where you have like obstacles that you might see in an actual hunting scenario. I love getting out and shooting these total archery challenges for that reason specifically. Like, I don't shoot a target bow at these things. Like, I'm shooting my full-blown hunting setup.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
You know, basically no broadhead on the front, but otherwise it's my hunting setup.
Yep.
Yeah. Same arrow and everything. I know some guys will take like tack arrows and, you know.
Yeah, I go back and forth. So it depends on what I'm hunting, right? So this arrow setup right now that I'm running is, this is a Easton Axis.
Mm-hmm.
And fully built out. I've got 50 grains of brass in the front and a 100 grain tip, 3 fletch on the back with a wrap. Fully built. This thing's 430 grains. So this is going to be my whitetail arrow. So this is like fully built whitetail arrow as well as my total archery challenge arrow. For elk, I'm probably going to be going
125.
Now for elk, I'm going to have 80-pound limbs for elk because I'm a short draw length.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a 27-inch draw length. So elk 80-pound limbs, I'll probably be shooting closer to like a 480 grain arrow.
Mm-hmm.
But out on the total archery challenge course, pretty much running a 430.
Yeah.
So wait, you're still going to 80-pound limbs for elk, but backing her down to 70 for everything else?
Not necessarily. I'll probably shoot whitetail with 80 as well, but it just depends. I guess the setups are going to change a little bit. So these 2 bows that I got sent from Hoyt, when I got these bows, they didn't have the 80-pound limbs built for them.
Yeah.
So they had 70s. So he sent out 70s for me, and they've been awesome. I've shot 80 pounds the last like 6 years of my life, and the 70s have felt really, really nice. But I like having that little bit harder hitting arrow, especially for elk.
Yeah.
But I would not be afraid to hunt whitetail. 70 pounds, 430 grain arrow, like that's a whitetail killing setup for sure.
Oh,
but yeah, now that you say it, once I have the 80-pound limbs,
you're like,
I probably won't go back.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to walk away from that. Once you like experience, you know, what an 80-pound limb will do, how fast it'll send an arrow out. What that's like, it's hard to back off of it. It's unless you're really struggling.
Anymore, the draw, you know, drawing an 80-pound Hoyt today is, dude, like drawing a 65, 70-pound bow of 5, 6, 7 years ago. Like the draw cycles anymore, so it feels so good drawing 80. It like these 70s feel like butter to me. And maybe that is because I have shot 80 for the last 5 or 6 years and been, you know, used to that, but 70 is just like a feather, and 80 is really easy now, you know. So a lot of people shooting bows can draw an 80-pound Hoyt. I'll tell you that.
I think it's like I'm sure you can relate, Joel. It's like at the gym, and you can too. I think that a lot of people like limit themselves to like, well, I can only lift the 50-pound dumbbells. I'm like, well, why? And they're like, I was just all I could do. I'm like, I think you could do more. Like I'm just eyeing somebody up, and I'm like, I think you could do more.
Yeah.
And then I'll spot them or whatever and help them through it. And it's just a decision. Like I just decided to lift more weight.
It's comfortability, I think, is what it comes back to. It's like there's a lot of people, like if I'm doing anything like, because obviously, clearly I'm smaller than you guys from a muscle standpoint.
Sure.
And all right, see how I dropped that in there, Nick? I covered my ass
from many
that.
aspects potentially, but yeah.
But if I'm whatever doing Arnold's on the bench, right? I'm using 50s, right? But it's because
well,
that's
what
my,
Arnold's is. That's a stuff.
Yeah, that's my. I just feel like from a rep standpoint, like I know that I can get through my workout with those. Plus, I've got a bum right shoulder.
You go double Arnold's or single?
Singles.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
right on.
Yeah, singles resistance
chest
up,
day also?
down. Huh?
Chest also?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if they call those like chest Arnold's, but that's what I do too.
Yeah, that's what I do.
You a fan of Arnold's?
Yeah, I do like an Arnold press.
Yeah.
But the problem, you gotta watch out with going too heavy with some of those movements though. Just you gotta take care of your shoulders.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, man.
You go too heavy and it starts to be that like.
Yeah.
It starts to be that motion that things start creaking.
I'm like, what would have been two?
How old are you?
2.5 years?
I'm 31.
31. Okay.
So I'm like
Me too.
2.5 years out from when I partially tore my rotator cuff.
Oh.
Remember when I slipped out of the tree stand?
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm good, but it's like it's weird because obviously I'm right hand dominant, and like righty is not as strong as lefty, which is really odd in my brain. Because of my shoulder.
Well, that's typically the case. Most people are stronger in their non-dominant arm. Yeah, because you have more dexterity with your dominant hand. So your left one needs to compensate with strength.
Interesting. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because it's like, I
bet like your left pec and your left bicep are probably bigger too. Mine are.
Yeah. It's really like my delt and in my shoulder. Like they look the same size, but like if from a feel standpoint, it's like this one is so much stronger than this one.
Mm-hmm.
But I also thought that was injury related, so I don't know. Maybe.
Could be both. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Hoyt.
What can we say, man? Another year back with Hoyt. We're both shooting RX8s. I'm shooting 70 pounds in the bourbon, which I love bourbon.
That's great.
And you're shooting 80 pounds in the straight black.
Blacked out as always, man. I got so I'm shooting the 500 grain Easton Arrow this year. And at 80 pounds, I'm flinging that thing at like 300 feet per second. I mean, it's deadly. Put a water buffalo in front of me and he's done.
I mean, we shot it earlier. You literally put an arrow through a brand new target, like never been shot before.
I know. So one other thing that Hoyt is doing this year is they're making all their own strings in-house. And so the quality is top notch, and it just really is something that is setting them apart from their competitors.
Well, what we always try to do when we go to our bow shop, Ultimate Outdoors, is we try to shoot other bows just to make sure that we are really giving everybody a fair chance.
Sure.
The reality is it's a no-brainer. Hoyt stands above all of them every single time.
Definitely. And so right now you can use code HUNTR, HUNTR, for 20% off any apparel on the Hoyt website. And as always,
get serious, get Hoyt. Anyways.
Yeah, going back to the 80-pound limb thing, one thing that I'd noticed is, like I say, especially with this year, this cam system has been just, like I say, 80 pounds is not 80 pounds of 3, 4, 5 years ago. It is quite a bit easier to draw 80 pounds these days. But I will say, like, if somebody's looking at going to an 80-pound limb, you have to also take into consideration that drawing 80 pounds is one of those things that if you're warmed up and you're shooting and you're pull it back, you feel good. That's all fine and well until it's like 15 degrees on an all-day sit, and you've been sitting there, freezing your tail off. You have a big old butt come in, you got adrenaline pumping, whatever it might be, and you go to pull that 80, and then you're stuck like right here. Because you can't. It's like when you're frozen solid, it is a different beast pulling back 80 pounds. So just keep that in mind as well. It's like maybe set yourself up in a scenario where after a good workout or something where you're pretty well drained, like then try to pull your 80-pound bow, or
definitely
pull your 80-pound bow from a seated position, or just try something to where you're putting, that little bit of extra, I guess, stress on yourself to get that thing back. Because like I say, in a deer stand, when you're freezing cold, 80 pounds is still 80 pounds.
Yeah.
I'd say
Jeremy shot mine 80.
Yeah.
Got her back.
Yeah. I mean, it was fine. I think it's probably two weeks or so before season that I usually start doing cold shoots. So like one shot a day type of thing, and maybe 3 days a week. The other ones I'll do reps, but I'll just go in one shot, like, from whatever, just 30 at an angle. Yeah, just straight cold, just to, and then put it away. Maybe the next day I shoot reps, and then the next day I'll do just one cold. And it just really kind of hones your brain. I mean, because a lot of guys, don't realize like how their improvement on a muscle memory standpoint when you're shooting reps, it's just like lifting or anything else, comes into play. Whereas like, when that deer opportunity comes in, there are no reps. It is that single shot opportunity. And so you just have to be able to get comfortable, lock it in, make the shot. And then, I think that's something that even as a kid, like I never did, right? I would go out and shoot 100 arrows or 50 arrows or 20 arrows, whatever. Yeah. And then eventually it was like, well, when the time's right, like I've got one shot, like why am I not just practicing that at any given time? I usually I'll go on my deck at like 25 to 30 yards. So I'm elevated at an angle and I'll just do one shot and then I'll put it away.
Do you think that forces you to, because, one side of logic would say, as long as you continue to have good form and, the more that you practice, okay, more arrows is going to yield more muscle memory. Like, so there's an argument for that. You're shooting just one time. I mean, are you thinking that's forcing you to like front load your focus into just one thing?
It's putting more pressure on that one shot, or at least I'm trying to.
Yeah. By eliminating.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea for sure. I like that. Getting out and, it's still a repetition, even though it's one arrow a day, whatever that might be. It's still, you're getting that rep of that mindset of this one arrow is the only arrow that counts.
Yep.
Right. On a hunt, you roll out of bed and you're ready. Truck camping, whatever, you roll out of bed, you go hunt. Your first shot that day is going to be probably the shot on the animal, right?
Yep.
So, I definitely can relate to doing that, because I try to do the same thing while I'm in hunting camp. Yep. So while I'm on the road, I take a target with me, and some days I'll shoot reps, but most of the time I'll just pull one arrow out and I'll just send one arrow at that target, and this was my arrow. And now if I miss that target completely with that arrow, I'm like, okay, something's wrong with my bow. Then you start evaluating. But, just those single reps and pressuring yourself into making that one arrow count, that definitely is helpful.
And it's tough, man, because like our nature, especially if you're 2 weeks out from like the go time of the season, is to be like, dude, I just want to be shooting. I just want to be in my element. So there's also kind of a resistance to want to shoot more. I think to your point, it's really just trying to hone that focus and pressure on like one arrow. I'll keep my quiver loaded just from a balance standpoint, like I would normally hunt, but it's literally just a single arrow.
Well, you probably want both. I mean, that's the argument to be shooting right now is like, just get reps in.
Just get reps.
Establish that muscle memory. And then I'm with you as you get closer to season, or at some point, you want to have gone through the process of what is the pressure of one shot going to feel like. So you kind of need
That's why I switch them off. Like I'll do a day where it's a single rep, and then maybe the next day I shoot 25 or 30 arrows, and then I'll do a day of a single rep. Next day, multiple reps.
I was gonna say there's a lot of, like, don't get me wrong, I shoot my bow a ton. Like I practice a lot and I love shooting my bow a ton. I'm just touching on like what you'd said, the importance of that one arrow, whichever arrow that is that you decide that's my one arrow. That's kind of what you're looking for, is making that absolute perfect shot every single time when you shoot that arrow.
I think it's also a bit scary, and I mean guilty of it too myself, for a long time, is like there's a lot of people from the time the season starts to the time the season ends, they don't shoot their bow at all. Like they enter the season ready to go. And I did it for a long time. I've done it
before too. I'm like, what happened? Like, why was I so disciplined with shooting? And then once the season started, what is it that makes you just be like, it's here now.
We're hunting instead of shooting at this point.
Right. It is hard to persist.
Do you think it's partially like a fear of, because I've done this before where I've like overthought things a little bit, where I get to shooting and then it's almost like during season, what if something comes up with like target panic? What if something comes up with like, something, whatever, just something's off during the season. You're like, I don't want to have that mental breakdown. Like, no, we know we're shooting
probably
good,
part of it.
That mental aspect is a huge part of it. I mean, it's kind of like, I always want it, besides those one-shot days, right? Like if I'm doing reps, I'm ending those reps on good arrows, right? I'm not going to end those reps on bad arrows and be like, oh, well, we'll see how tomorrow goes. Yep. So it's the same mindset, is like if you shoot during the season and like all of a sudden you're not grouping as tight or you're off, and it's like immediately it's in your head, and I guarantee when that deer comes by, you're blowing the shot. Like it doesn't matter what you do. And it could be mechanical, right? It could be something wrong with your bow.
Yeah. It could be something as easy as just being like too lazy to swap out broadheads with field points too.
Well, so I was going to ask that, Joel. So what, if you want to tell us the brand, you can, but what are you shooting from a broadhead side?
So this year I'm shooting Swacker.
Okay.
Pretty much all of last year I shot Swacker as well. Prior to that, I've killed a lot of animals with a Sever.
Yeah.
And then, man, I'm such a gear junkie that it's like I've shot Grim Reaper.
Mm-hmm.
I've shot the Swack. I haven't tried the Iron Wills as far as a fixed blade goes, but I'd like to try an Iron Will. I've heard a lot of good stuff from them.
Mm-hmm.
Slick Trick Standard was when it comes to a fixed blade. Slick Trick Standard was kind of like my go-to.
Yep.
I could get them to tune well. They flew really well, and typically I had really good blood trails with them. But as far as an expandable this year, I'm going to be shooting the Swacker 2-inch.
So I mean, like I would say, I started bow hunting when I was 13. From 13 to sometime right before college, I would say I probably shot mostly Muzzy 3 blades. Like that just was kind of the go-to fix, right?
Did you ever shoot the Nap Thunderhead?
I did. I had Nap Thunderhead as well. Yep. And
that was the OG.
But you know what?
Those are similar to like a G5 Striker.
Yeah, they're a little bit more just large component type.
All fixed blade.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But man, you know, I swear I never tuned my bow.
Mm-hmm.
I never did. Like it just wasn't how I grew up hunting and shooting. Like I shoot field points all year, all summer long, and then I would put on a Muzzy and, you know, no wonder I missed or hit back or whatever. Like,
right.
Clearly, like there was planing issues happening, and it's
that was like a big like a novel idea when people are like, you need to practice with your broadhead. You're like, what?
Yeah, I'm like, well, I'm just gonna destroy them.
Yeah.
Like I have one pack. What do you mean? You know,
exactly.
And it's so it was such a weird scenario to do that, and then obviously now, like I would hope, like most people wouldn't even think about putting on a fixed blade without tuning their bow to it. But just it seemed like back then it was just like, I don't know. I'm sure people did it, but it just was not common.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the beauty anymore of the expandable system is most expandables on the market these days, even if you have somebody who's being a little bit negligent with that, they're probably still going to shoot pretty close to what their field points are doing.
Yep.
And, you know, and that's what you want across the industry is people making better shots on animals. And with an expandable, people are doing it because they fly so dang well. Anymore, just about every expandable, now not every expandable, but a lot of expandables on the market that have that like that tight ferrule that doesn't have a bunch of like you know, wide surface for your opening blades. Those are all shooting like darts, man. The Severs shoot like darts. The Swackers shoot like darts. All the way out to distance. At 100 yards, you can put either one of those broadheads side by side with a field point if your bow's tuned, you know. And it's incredible anymore. The innovation in heads is so fun. I love it. Like I say, the gear side of stuff, I kind of nerd out on all that.
Yeah. Joel, so you're switching to from Severs to Swackers. Will this year be coming up here? This will be the first time shooting those?
No, so pretty much all of last year I killed I think everything with my Swackers, and the year prior. So how I got turned on to the Swackers was I went down and hunted South Texas with Levi Morgan. So obviously he shoots Swackers, and I went down there and hunted with him. I shot his LRP arrow system. So Levi's got like it's called the LRP, the long range precision arrow, and it's a whole built arrow system that is like it's built to basically what Levi's specs would be if he were to build a hunting arrow. So they tune it top to bottom. Everything is fletched like to the spine. They broadhead tune everything with the heads, and they send a whole package out that is all like perfectly, all these arrows are the same. And so anyway, I was shooting that system, and I shot my first deer in South Texas with one of those Swackers, and I was like, dang, that cuts a big hole, you know. And unfortunately I made like a little bit far back shot, the way the deer was standing and the way I was holding right on his heart, and I slipped it just right behind his heart, just a little. Elevation was perfect for the heart, but I went a little bit too far back and just pretty much punched straight liver.
Mm-hmm.
And with that liver shot, we ended up finding the buck dead, and it was like good situation all around. But that's kind of when I first got turned on to those swacker heads. And since then I've been shooting. So they have like the green feral swacker, the blue feral swacker, and then the LRP system, which is what Levi's got going. And so anyway, last year I shot the blue and the green feral. The blue feral I shot a mule deer in western Nebraska with, and it was 16 yards broadside. I stalked it in a standing cornfield and pretty much jumped him out of his bed at like 5 yards, and he ran out to 16. He had no clue what I was. I was obviously full camo and everything. I had like a little ghillie suit hat on that I made, just bored at camp, and I tied a bunch of like pieces of camouflage together, and I super glued them to my head, or not my head, but my hat, And so stalked in. Anyway, shot this mule deer, and right where I shot him, he jumped up and kicked, and he ran out of the cornfield. And right where he kicked, right behind him, there was blood like 6 foot up on the corn stalk. And it was just like instant blood trail right away. And the whole blood trail running out of the cornfield was just painted. And I shot a whitetail in Missouri with it. Same thing. I filmed him tip over within 80 yards of the shot, and the whole just blood trail was crazy. And so I've had really good experiences with the swacker as far as blood trails go. And that was kind of like my main deciding factor for shooting them this year. Was they fly extremely well. I've had nothing but good results with them, even with bad shots. Like I say, that liver shot, all in all, they've just been a great head in terms of, blood trail. They're just good heads.
What is the difference between those different color ferals? Are they made out of different metals, or are they all made out of, it's aluminum, I think?
So they're the blue swackers have like a swept, when they open up, the blades are swept back, they're curved.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
The green swackers, when they open up, they're just straight blade. They don't have any curve to them.
Okay.
And then the LRP system is basically, it's a whole different broadhead system, including the I think I have a couple in there. I could run and grab one, but the head is basically a reverse thread head. So the actual insert that goes in the arrow, once all that's glued in, you have like a male thread sticking out of the end of your arrow.
Okay.
And then the broadhead is a female collar that like the broadhead itself is a female collar. It slips over and screws on.
Okay.
So they built that, and I believe it's a stainless steel system, I believe, but it's basically they built it to be like the most robust system that they could in terms of durability. So if you're hitting something that you don't want to be hitting,
so that's a steel ferrule
and breaking
as well,
your
then.
broadheads. Yeah. Yep.
Gotcha.
So, but
that's a big improvement.
All different systems.
That's a big improvement, because all the swackers that I shot before had, I think, aluminum ferrules, and that was why one of the reasons I got away from them.
You also have to get a pass-through on those things.
Well, I guess that was going to be my second question. Was I assume you passed through most of those animals that you killed? So when you're talking,
so all of those animals. So there's only been one deer that I shot that wasn't a pass-through with the swacker, and it was like, it was a buck in Oklahoma. I shot it with the LRP system, and it was like a very steep angle shot from the tree stand, and I went down through, caught basically top lung, went through the spine and caught the top of the lungs, and it buried down to
the shoulder. I
had maybe 8 inches of shaft still sticking out of it, but it dropped the buck right in its tracks and stuff. So it wasn't any blood trail or anything. Obviously, it just dropped it right where it stood. But everything else prior to that, I have had full clean pass-throughs, and obviously the blood trails have been really good with that. I've never myself experienced one without a pass-through. Now, with that, the swacker has the little blades that open, the
blades.
Swacker. So the swacker is a front deploying head,
right,
as opposed to a rear deploying. the little blades that deploys that front deploying head are sharpened on the swackers. So it kind of makes a little bit of a hole going in. And what I like about them is when it opens up in the body cavity, the actual blades haven't touched any hide going through at all. So you're getting fresh blades going through that animal. So from a hemorrhaging standpoint, like, it's as sharp as it can be at that point, you know? So, but yeah, I've never experienced them not having a pass through. So, I don't know. I guess we'll see. The day that I don't get a pass through, maybe I'll look at them a little different. But right now, they're definitely doing what they're supposed to do for me.
Well, I don't think they're any less likely to give a pass through than any other mechanical broadhead, frankly. What scares me, and that is the main reason that I stopped shooting them, was
there is some kinetic energy differences between front and rear deploying field points.
Generally, yes, you're right. But that small entry hole that you mentioned is what scares me. It's maybe not from my setup. I mean, I probably could get away with it generally, especially now that they've got a steel ferrule. But that small entry wound, it's like, it's all good if you get an exit wound, but if you don't, you know where I'm going.
Yep. Oh yeah. And I've been right up that page as well. I like trying all sorts of different heads, and it's just one of those things that, like, I haven't had a bad experience with them yet. And it's probably, with it, when it comes to broadheads, I kind of like playing around with a lot of different stuff. And for me, it's all about if I know I put a good shot on that animal, like, there's no doubt in my mind that shot was where it was supposed to be. For me, it's like, how quickly does that animal die after I made the shot that I know I made? And in the past, I've shot expandable heads where, like, I zipped this thing, like, clean pass through, double lung, like, as good a shot as you can make. Very little blood, tracked it for, 150 yards, and it's just drop by drop. It's like, what are we doing? Like, this should be this should be an expansive amount of blood, but it just isn't. And I've had that happen, like, routinely with different heads. And this was kind of the first expandable head that I've played around with where I've been, like, actually blown away with a blood trail, where I'm like, whoa, all right, this thing's bleeding and dropping in sight. And, back when I mentioned those Slick Trick standards. When I shot those Slick Trick standards pretty religiously, I usually had really good blood trails with those things because it opened like a 4-blade hole. I still think there's something to, blood. It might not be like the blood that you're seeing on the ground. There is something to having a 4-blade hole from a broadhead that's just like, it's just like a nail punch. It's just punching that thing clean through it. And you can't, with a 2-blade hole, there's technically still a flap that can,
close
open
up
and shut, whatever. But with that 4-blade hole, man, you cannot shut that thing. And it is dumping blood. And one of my favorite turkey heads is the Grim Reaper Carnivore. I'm not sure if I would shoot it on a whitetail or not. I'm sure it would do fine, but it is definitely a kinetic energy robber. Like, 4-blade front deploying, and it's like a I can't remember what, 2.5 inch or massive cut.
Wow.
But on turkey, it hits them like a baseball bat. I mean, it just knocks them over, and it's a good head for turkey, but it just, every head has, advantages, disadvantages. And I think it really comes down to, like, personal experience with the hunter. What heads have been good for him, what heads haven't been good for him. And ultimately it all boils down to confidence. Like, what are you confident with? Whether it makes a blood trail or not, if someone's more confident, with the accuracy of whatever head it might be, that it really should come down to confidence and shot placement. And I think shot placement is very overlooked when it comes to, like, big cut broadheads. Big cut broadheads are fine, when you're talking fixed blade, as well as a lot of the front deploying expandable heads that have massive cutting surface. Those are fine as long as you can get them to fly
Mm-hmm.
the way they're supposed to fly.
For
you
sure.
know.
I looked at, we had Shane Simpson on the tracker.
Yeah.
So Shane put out some data, I don't know, maybe a few weeks ago. And it was essentially recapping like his dog tracking throughout the season. And it had a diagram essentially of like where the hits were like on the deer. And like basically from like the shoulder and like clear to the ass, basically, it was like a 96% recovery rate for dead deer.
Mm-hmm.
From like the shoulder, like right there forward, right, which would be like putting it through the shoulder blade. Basically, it was like 60% from a recovery side. And I assume a lot of that is, maybe some of it's people shooting expandables, but not having the bow and the arrow set up to penetrate into that shoulder blade, right? It's not that the broadhead wasn't lethal enough, but they're shooting too light of an arrow or too less poundage or whatever it might be, or you could hit straight into the bone, knuckle, and that's tough to penetrate through. But it was interesting to see, like, a lot of us when you're looking at shooting at deer, like, you think about a back shot and you're just like immediately like your heart sinks and you're just like, geez, like that's but it's I mean it's a deadly hit. It's just not something that you want to do because it's not an easy recovery.
Well, you put one through that cavity, I mean they're done. It's just a matter of recovering them, how much time you give, especially the further you get back there. But and in that case, you want something that's going to give you forgiveness. Which would be a bigger, cutting diameter.
I mean, do we think we're still having is the discussion still happening of like we need to be shooting 600 grain arrows with like?
Oh, definitely.
Is it?
I watched yesterday. The Hunting Public guys did a podcast with Troy.
Yeah.
The Ranch Fairy.
Yeah, Ranch Fairy.
And they're very much still on that.
Interesting.
Yeah, and the answer is like, dude, you're shooting bare bows. Like, you need to shoot something that's shooting a straight arrow first, and then.
and if you're trying to pin it, I'll give it to them for sure. If you're trying to get penetration on a hog,
agree.
Like,
yes,
that's a different story because buddy, them things are like cinder blocks. They are hard to pass through, for sure.
There is a line to draw for sure. I mean, while I shoot an expandable broadhead, I would only probably really prescribe that to like 40 to 50% of guys, I think.
Why would you say that?
Because I just don't think a lot of guys are shooting the poundage or the arrow setups that would justify the loss of penetration that you are going to get inevitably from an expandable.
I think that's an interesting take.
If you're shooting less than 70 pounds, I'd probably put you on a fixed blade. Because chances are most of you are probably shooting like barely a 400 grain arrow too. So
I was going to say, if you're shooting less than a 70, it then relies heavily on what your arrow set
your draw
up.
length. Like Joel's shooting a 27-inch draw length, 70 pounds. So like, what's your feet per second on that at your 420 grain arrow?
Yeah, so 27, 430 grain arrow, I'm shooting like 280, 283, somewhere right in that range.
That's where I've got a 29-inch draw, same arrow set up, except I'm shooting 125 instead of 100 grain, and I'm shooting like 282, 283.
Yep.
So that goes back to why I've loved shooting 80 pounds the last 5-6 years, because that 80 pounds gives me that leeway to bump up to like a 480 grain arrow and still be tuning in that 280 feet per second. My sweet spot for tunability is 280.
Listen to this, dude. This may discourage you a little bit based on your draw length. So if we're both shooting 80 pounds, I've got a 500 grain arrow, 502 grain total arrow setup at 29.5 inches, what my draw length is, and I'm shooting 300 feet per second. So you're shooting the same poundage, man. But you're coming up a little short.
Isn't that funny how much draw length affects speed?
Yeah, that's wild.
And draw length affects speed quite a bit more than draw weight. So people think they go up, 10 pounds in draw weight. Well, you're still not making up for the speed that somebody drawn 30 inches.
You don't need to be stronger. You need longer arms.
Well, because I was going to say, like,
you just need to grow taller. That's it.
Just get longer.
Your 80 pound setup, an arrow setup at whatever 470, 480 grains is similar to mine, except I'm shooting 29 inches on a 70, and I'm shooting about 100%. The same FPS.
Mm-hmm. And 280 is a sweet spot. There's nothing wrong with that at all.
That's a fast arrow.
280 is my 280 is my sweet spot for being able to still have a forgiving bow that's fast, but not be so heavy of an arrow setup that like if you start dropping down into that 270, 260, your groups will. I mean, you're lobbing some arrows out there at range. You know, to be completely honest, at 20. You know, anywhere from, let's say, 0 to 30 yards. I mean, guys with stick bows are shooting great groups.
Yeah.
Like you can shoot a really, really slow arrow within 30 yards and group exceptionally well. But the second you start stepping out into mule deer country, antelope country, even some elk situations where, like, if you're a proficient shot and you feel good about, you know, the way your setup is shooting, if you've got to take a 60-yard shot, you know, it is really nice to have that forgiveness of 280 feet per second.
Yeah.
I do think that, I know accuracy is the most important thing. And I think some guys can maybe get in the weeds on like the broadhead or the weight discussion to be like, well, I have to be shooting this heavy of an arrow or what. It's like the most important thing is, and you probably should have some threshold of like, I don't know what it is, 270, 280, to say like, hey, I've got a minimum standard of speed so that I can maintain accuracy and forgiveness. As far as accuracy is related. So, and I would sacrifice on, well, I guess where would you be sacrificing to get that on, penetration by way of weight of the arrow. You know what I mean? I'd shoot a lighter arrow, knowing that I may get less penetration so that I could increase my accuracy.
I think it depends on like what you're shooting. Like for whitetail.
For whitetails.
Yeah. I mean, you could shoot a lighter setup overall if you needed to, and you're still going to kill that animal. I mean, I would say most of us shot, what would we say it was like the old Carbon Express Maximas or whatever. I mean, we were shooting, high 300s, and still killing deer pretty regularly with them. But I think
and that's a case there though where I would prescribe a fixed blade broadhead
for sure.
I wouldn't recommend a big cutting surface diameter expandable broadhead on a light arrow.
And at that time, I would say most of us were like expandables weren't a big thing. Like Rage was just starting to kind of come on the scene with that kind of thing.
I shot those slick tricks forever. That's what I shot.
I shot ram cats
at a certain point.
Yeah, so it is interesting to see that. I would be. I guess right now, and maybe it's because we finally are digging into understanding, not just the bow, but the arrow setup and that arrow build so much more now. How many people are just buying, I don't know, a cheap dozen of arrows and just slinging a fixed blade in it and going out and hunting with a 385 grain arrow? A lot?
Yeah. I like to take a median of all my friends that I know that hunt. Now, I have some pretty serious friends who hunt, who are like in depth with everything. And I have some people who, they work full-time jobs. The only time they get out to shoot their bow is like the week before season. They grab their bow, they screw on tips, and they go hunting. Those guys are probably going to be shooting the little bit cheaper arrow setup, the little bit not quite as, dialed in with their setups. And the guys who are obviously serious about it, have more of the serious setup. So, but that's maybe like the people who screw on a broadhead and just go hunt. That's maybe like 10% of my friend base. Now, I might have more friends who are more serious about it, but anymore, especially with Total Archery Challenge, especially with all the social media content, the YouTube content that people are consuming these days, I see a lot of people with really like built out setups.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that just thumbs up.
How about that? Where'd that come from?
Where is that coming from?
I guess I don't know. It's like built into the system.
An iPhone thing, I think.
Somebody was doing something the other day, like with their hands, and it just made hearts. I was like, "What the hell? Where did that come from?"
It's this guy. It's this guy. Here we go.
Reading your mid.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. There it is. Yeah. There it is. Yeah. They were just like they were talking with their hands, and all of a sudden these hearts just come. I was like, "What the hell's going on here?"
Yeah.
Serious.
A damn Pride Month.
But touching back, I think anymore there's a lot of really serious guys. Or guys who take things really serious with their setups. They listen to podcasts like this, and they go pretty deep down the rabbit hole, just like I do, just like anybody does. And anymore, there's some guys shooting some really I can't remember why we got on that subject, but shooting really like tuned up setups.
Well, yeah, I'm just trying to think of it from a shop standpoint. Like,
well, here's the difference. There's kind of where I was going to go too. If we want to break it down and simplify, I bet you for sure a majority, if not a large percentage of military age men, whatever guy, if you look at the core demographic of bow hunters right now in the whitetail space, it's probably 25 to 45-year-old guys. Okay. A majority of them are probably shooting 70 pounds.
Or crossbows.
Well, a vertical bow.
Okay.
But you're right. Yes. A vertical bow hunter, 70 pounds.
Yep. 60 to 70.
By probably a large margin. And so probably shooting like 300 grain spines. Or, 300 weight spines, for the most part.
And are they just buying arrows straight? Like,
most are probably buying from the shops. So I think shops are probably promoting. At one time it was Carbon Express. I don't know if it is anymore.
Easton, I think, is your big dog.
For sure is huge.
Yeah, a lot of times it's kind of the shop arrow anymore. Like Shields is a massive. Shields is like everywhere now, and they're huge, and they have like their own Shields arrow.
Yeah.
So a lot of times that can be, if somebody doesn't want to go for, a very expensive arrow setup and whatnot,
right,
they go with like the Shields Rogue or whatever they call it.
Do you know, did they white label that from,
I'm sure
it's like a Black Eagle or
I think so. Yeah, it's probably white
tip.
labeled from I'm not sure what.
I mean,
at
least per the sales reps, right? What we hear is like Easton's the gorilla. Like they own the market.
They sell the most.
Victory still got a portion. I'd say Gold Tip.
I don't think Victory does. I don't even know bow shops that sell Victory, frankly.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah. When we shot them, we had a tough time finding them because we didn't get them directly.
Yeah. I think that's an illusion.
So I guess that was
it's Easton, Gold Tip, and Black Eagle are the ones that I.
So go back to like where they're getting them from, and I guess it's just because of you still need to take your bow to a shop. In the case of
most people,
it could be a Shields. There's still a lot of people take them to big box, right, to have their work on, or they're buying their bow at big box and then they're setting it up for them, but. So I would assume that's it. But, you also look at the e-commerce side of arrows. Hell, I buy dozens of arrows online at any given time.
Most people don't.
You don't think so?
No.
I don't know.
That's a lagging category, I think, where most people want to get it from a shop.
Hell, dude, growing up, I bought them from Dick's Sporting Goods, and I'd get them cut there and get the inserts hot glued into them and and that was it. You let it roll.
I think generally in terms of like figuring out where the difference is, it's kind of where I'm going with this. Most people are in that 70-pound range. They're shooting a 300-ish, maybe 350 spine arrow to match that. Where I think and they're getting those from their shops, whatever brand it is. Where I think the biggest difference in the arrow setup and the that tuning thing is happening there is in the outserts. There's some broadhead, whether you go
anything FOC related,
whether it's 100 or 120, 125s are getting more popular. But where the biggest difference you're going to see is in the outsert system, or whatever type of they're not ouserts, but inserts, outserts.
And you said are you using the brass hit system?
Yep. Yeah, the brass hit inserts,
which you have as well.
That's what I have as well, which I like. I found that sweet spot. Probably like Joel was saying in terms of that like 280 mark, but like a heavy hitter too, like enough when that thing hits.
A sweet spot
it's
for
a
sure.
hammer. Yeah,
I think there's a lot of talk and circulation that goes across social media and just people talking in general and curiosities and trying different things with different bow setups. But when it comes to the heavy arrow versus light arrow debate, this is my personal opinion. There's a sweet spot for every category of game animal that you want to hunt. So for antelope, you can probably get away with a little bit lighter setup that is shooting faster and more forgiving at distance, because antelope, typically your average shot is going to be a little bit further than you would have an average shot for whitetail. Now, your arrow for whitetail might be a little bit heavier than that, but still pretty forgiving in your speeds. Your arrow for elk, myself personally, I want a heavier arrow for elk to penetrate how big those animals are, right? So every animal has their sweet spot as far as your arrow setup. And I think you can go overboard with the light side, and I think you can go overboard with the heavy side. And I'm definitely seeing it like on the heavy side. you might be able to penetrate really, really well, but if you're shooting past 20, 30 yards, like you're really dropping off on those things are lobbing like a baseball.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Lone Wolf Custom Gear.
Man, Jared, we are tree stand fanatics, and I think the one thing that we have learned over all these years is to kill big bucks, we got to be mobile. We've been hunting out of lone wolves for many years, the original lone wolf, and then obviously with the custom gear stuff, we're using the 0.5 and the 0.75. Yeah. And the one thing that we talked about is like, what if there were no cables? Here we are.
I really just don't know how you can beat it, frankly. But, a lot of that came, too, from a relationship that we've built with the DeQuistos. We've had both Cody and Andre on the podcast a few times. The passion for hunting, the outlook on the sport and stuff, I think is eye to eye with how we look at it. Everything that has gone into building this brand and to building these tree stands is something that we want to be a part of.
This is the 40th anniversary of these guys creating tree stands that have been critical to how we hunt whitetail deer today. If you look over the past, you'll see Andre's designs being implemented across so many stands over the years. Such a cool thing, but really has changed the way that we all hunt whitetail deer from above now.
Right now, you can use code HUNTR, HUNTR, to get 7% off anything on the entire website. Be the lone wolf.
Kind of what Joel and I were just talking about is around, if there's an area that I think people don't do a lot of thinking about what they're shooting is the crossbow bolts. Right. And I mean, we've had arguments, I think, with a couple guys that I'm sure there are people that think about FOC and are doing that, but 99% of the guys are getting bolts with their crossbow they buy, including my kids got them with Raven when they bought it 8 or 9 years ago. And it's, what were we saying, Joel? Those are like 200 grain type bolts, and
yeah, 280. I'm not even sure what they weigh, but just knowing how short they are, like there's no way they're over 300 grains.
Yeah, they're 22 inches long. They've got no outsert insert system in it, right? And that's what you're shooting.
I wonder how much it matters. I mean, I'm familiar with
I think
our setups.
I think this is where, like, especially, and maybe like that 8-year-old Raven's only shooting 320, 330, 340, something like that. But like these new ones that are shooting 450 plus, I think that's where
that's so fast.
I think that's where speed cannot compensate enough for a poorly built arrow. Like, I think you could hit that deer at 400 feet per second with a poorly built arrow, and that's literally where it could like bounce off.
Well, it's a balance like anything. The speed is obviously an advantage, and it would allow you to shoot a heavier projectile, which I think would benefit you from a penetration standpoint. But I don't know what they weigh on average.
I would assume
they're definitely
very light.
Bigger because they have to have an extremely stiff. Well, maybe not that much stiffer because they're so much shorter.
I think they're all like 8.9 on GPIs or 9, and I'm sure it's pretty.
Myself, I've never actually looked into the crossbow world. I couldn't tell you what a bolt actually weighs.
You can,
but
or you
I know with them being cut as short as they've got to be. I mean, you can go pretty light with an arrow and cut it real short and get some good stiffness out of it.
So here, these are 0.003 20-inch bolts from Raven, which I would assume are the standard, right?
Yeah, and while you're researching that, I'll just ask, is that a common complaint of crossbow hunters?
No.
Like, hey,
I think it's a common, it's just an oversight because they come with the bow, so it's just like, it's a package deal.
Well, hence my question, like, how much does it matter? You know what I mean?
I bet it does a lot.
Which leads to my question is, like, are guys having issues? Are guys having penetration issues with crossbows? I haven't heard that necessarily.
So,
right.
And again, maybe, so these are newer ones. So these ones say with 100 grain field tip, they'll weigh 400 grains.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That's a lot heavier than I thought.
Yeah. That's way heavier than I thought.
I mean, I don't know if that's true. I'm just saying that's what it says.
I mean, if you're 400 grains spitting 400 feet per second,
that's a hammer.
Yeah, that'll go through.
Yeah, that's a hammer. Yeah.
That'll work.
Seems
that'll
really
blow through anything.
Yeah, that doesn't seem. I guess that's not what I thought. So maybe I take that back, crossbow guys. But
it's hard for me to speak anything on crossbow because I think I've shot one crossbow in my entire life, and it was just like I shot at buddies.
I'd like to think that they've.
About them.
I'd like to think they've improved them because again, that Raven my kid shoots like 8 years old probably, and so whatever the bolts that came with it is what they've shot, and they've killed basically every deer they shot at with them.
Any issues with penetration?
No, but they haven't shot past 20 yards really, 22 yards. So
Does that make a big difference?
what's that?
How far you shoot at something?
The yardage.
Yeah, I mean you're
Well,
gonna,
you lose velocity out to distance.
Mhm.
So you lose consistent velocity, the further out you're shooting, but I've seen some stuff penetrate really, really well out at longer distance. So how much you're losing, I don't know.
yeah. Yeah, it's a kinetic energy type of thing as well.
I need a new target.
Because, have you ever seen, I'm trying to think who did it. Maybe it was Easton. I can't remember. But somebody did a kind of a research thing around like the kinetic energy, like hit it when it hits the target at 20 yards, 40 yards, 60 yards, 80 yards, or something like that.
Okay.
And it was, for a properly built bow and arrow, it was not a significant loss. But speed, obviously, and arrow weight were huge factors in that, right? So lower the speed and essentially the lower the arrow weight, the less kinetic energy when it reaches a target. And that really came about when expandables came on the market, because you needed X amount of kinetic energy for those to open, right? I think even Rage maybe came out with a low KE type broadhead that was, for essentially kids or women or anybody shooting that low KE type setup. But, before then, I would say that nobody even really talked about kinetic energy and what the foot pounds were when it hit an animal, which clearly is important. I mean, that's the point of contact with that animal. I mean,
well, that came after. It was all speed, like in
exactly.
the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Right.
Back
speed.
in the day when speed was everything.
Yeah,
I mean, guys were building bows that were shooting as fast as humanly possible, meaning they were shooting a very, very light arrow setup out of that bow.
Yeah.
Now, were they accurate with them? Arguable with a fixed blade head.
Yeah.
But they probably were fairly accurate with them and very forgiving at distance. But yeah, your kinetic energy on those setups were.
Well, we were shooting overdraws at that point.
Exactly.
Like your hand was basically behind the in front of the broadhead
like this.
Yeah.
Tunability was a challenge for those, because I remember. I'm sure all the bow manufacturers did, but I remember specifically like the Hoyt. They had some turbo bows.
Yeah.
Right. And as solid of they knew they're like, there's tuning challenges with those turbo bows, but they're like, that's what people want. So like, well, I guess we'll make them. They're like super fast turning cams.
I mean, the one I remember everybody shooting was High Country. You remember High Country bows? That was like the brand that I remember back in like the 90s and maybe even to the early 2000s was like the go-to bow, especially when you talk about overdraws and stuff. And I would assume that company either got bought or doesn't exist anymore. But I mean, High Country bows was very popular back in the day. I mean, as popular as Hoyt. I would say both of those were more popular than Matthews back in the day.
In the early 2000s.
In the late 90s, yeah.
Late 90s. See, that was just a little bit before my time. Because after that, I remember like the Matthews switchback. I've never seen such a powerful marketing campaign. The freaking switchback.
Yeah.
Remember cutting.
Was Z7 at the same time?
I think I was slightly after.
Z7 was slightly after? Yeah, no cam was, they put a lot on it.
No cam was huge.
Yeah, that bow sucked.
That bow sucked. Yeah, the switchback was a good bow. Yeah. I shot him.
There's some realizations in the industry with the no cam.
Oh,
they're like, I guess we need cams. Yeah,
yeah. They're like, it's smooth as butter. Shoots 150 feet per second.
I shot a Matthews Adrenaline for a long time.
I shot a Triax.
It was a great bow. Well, that's a newer one.
Got a lot of bucks with that.
It's funny how you progress though. Like it's like what you think is a great bow. It's like I felt like that. I killed my first elk with that Matthews Adrenaline and stuff, and then I forget what I went to after that. I think it was. If I went right to a carbon spider from there, I think I did.
I think you did too, because that's when you were working with us.
And I was like, "Oh, this thing is trash." Like, granted, it had a lot of years on it of advancement and stuff, but it's like it's just funny how what you think is a great technology or a great bow or whatever. It's like until you shoot the new one. Funny enough,
every year it does that too. Every single year we're coming out with new bows that, like last year. Would you guys have thought? I don't know. Did you guys shoot the RX-7 last year?
Yep.
I shot mine last night just for fun.
So the VTM and the RX-7. If you were like to put something on that bow where you're like, okay, this can be improved on, or this can be better, whatever. What would you have come up with? And then we go to this bow, which they've basically, revamped everything on it, and it's just like it is that much better.
I know.
I don't understand how they do it every year. Like the engineers at these bow companies, and it's every bow company at every level of. If you are on the flagship level of your bow,
Yep.
it seems like every year they keep improving on. And dude, the RX-8 and the Alpha X, the cam system, that exact cam system is just how?
Yeah, man.
I don't understand.
It's wild. I mean, I want to say it was 2005, 4 or 5. I bought a Bear Element, which was when Bear kind of first came back around with like all their newer modernized type bows, like to really set themselves
When was
down.
that? It must have been before
Is that
we
the
were
one
friends.
that has like the green
05. I was in college. Yeah, the green. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yep.
that was that new
the
kind of
iodized green cam.
Exactly. It was that was that new line that kind of pushed them out. Really, I mean, they made an aggressive marketing push around that. That bow was, I don't know, $350 Bear, something like that.
No pun intended.
Yeah. And I remember when I got it and was shooting it, I'm like, oh my God, like this thing is like, it's amazing. It's the greatest thing I've ever, and I killed a ton of deer with it. I shot it for how many years? And then, yeah, I forget what I went in and do a prime or something after that. And it was like, this bow is amazing. Like, I think to your point, Joel, like the evolution of this technology continues to just keep pushing. Now, I think you have setbacks though. Like, Matthews may not say it out loud, but that no cam was a setback for them, and the lift might be as well.
They've all had them. Every company's had bows that are like not the greatest.
Yeah, I mean it happens,
Well,
So
it's when a company starts chasing one category as like their stand-on pillar.
Yeah.
Whether that be weight reduction in the riser, or whether that be speed in the cam. If you start putting all of your bread into that one basket, you kind of start building a bow that is not quite as forgiving. It might be the lightest bow in the world, but it's not going to be the most forgiving. It might be the fastest bow in the world, but it might weigh like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to have like a good marriage of all of those. And when you do that, you come out with a bow that's just all around anybody can enjoy. Like it's going to be a dang good bow. Yeah. And I think the companies that realize that and don't just chase one, niche of the market, that's where you're going to end up on top.
Yeah.
It's hard to know, like, from a marketing standpoint, what people want to, because some people don't like how many guys are really digging in to say, like, I really like this about, this bow. Or it seems like there's just a few things that like stand out. I know in talking to my uncle and stuff, and because he was shooting an elite. And he's like, I really like the let off. I like how smooth it is.
Yep.
And how hard the back wall is. And it was like a 2 or 3 or 4 year old bow, And I shot it, I drew it, and I was like, yeah, that's an elite. I mean, that's what they feel like. You give up performance, speed, turnover rate of the cam, for
smoother draw, cycle back.
And exactly.
Yep, find your pocket.
And like 100% let off or whatever it is. It's like a ridiculous amount of let off. And I told him,
guys who are
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, guys who are shooting let off at that, like I say, these exact cams, you have that 75, 80, and 85% let off option. Well, when I shot specifically this past weekend at Total Archery Challenge, I brought my RX-8 and I brought my Alpha X. I shot my RX-8 the first course, and then after that course, I just on the practice range, I started shooting my Alpha X. And I was like, man, for whatever reason, I'm holding so much better with my RX-8. And it took me a couple rounds of shooting. I'm like, why is this holding? Like, my bar setup is pretty similar, like exact same sight, same draw length. I'm like, why am I holding? And then I'm like, oh, duh. My Alpha X is on 85% let off, and my RX-8 is at 80%. So at 80% let off, I have a more solid pin float. Because I shoot a hinge release, so I'm pulling tension into that back wall. Well, with 85% let off, myself personally, I just get a little bit lazy on that hinge, and it starts to take some of that tension off my back wall, and I start to float a little bit more. Whereas the 80%, it kind of forces you to stay
up and tight,
hard into your back wall. So, and you can exaggerate that and go to a 75% let off. With these bows, you can go even further down than that. So you see a lot of tournament archers as well shooting like a really low let off, like down there, way 75% and lower.
Yeah.
Because they like that feel where they're like they're solid, they're pulling through that shot, and you get up above that, like you're saying with the elites, where you can draw the bow and dang near hang the riser and just hold the string and let go of the bow.
Yeah.
That's the type of let off where like it's good for, a lot of shooters. It's good for a lot of shooters, but if you're wanting to really, really dial in your pin float and stuff, you've got to have some type of let off to play with.
Well, he was open to it. So because he knew, so we work with Hoyt, and I'm always pushing him on that. I'm like, not really. I'm like, yeah, shoot whatever you want.
Yeah, whatever you want.
I said, but if you want to set up, like I'll hook you up. So I got him into an Alpha X this year, and I told him, because in his his elite was great or whatever. I was like, this is a different thing here.
Oh yeah,
like it's gonna be different. And he's like, okay, and he was nervous. He's like, he's in his 60s.
He doesn't like change.
Them guys, they don't change bows very often. I think about giving it to your
yeah.
Well, I just wanted to make sure I can do this. And so I got that in his hands, and like, I didn't really say anything. I just said, here you go, dude. He's like, and he really liked, obviously, the finish and stuff. And he's big on the aesthetic of the bows. Really looks good. He gets some camo limbs and stuff. And so I heard from him like a couple weeks later, and he's like, hey, I got that bow set up. And I was like, yeah? I was like, what do you think? He's like, dude, it makes my elite feel like a toy.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't even know. He's like, this is like a totally different shooting experience.
I think the let off really, from a hunting side, really comes into play guys who are overconfident in their draw weight, right? If they have that higher let off, then they're like, oh, I can manage. Like maybe they should be shooting 60 or 65, and they're like, oh, I'll do a 70 for it, And so there's that understandable, and I get it, right? Because I mean,
there's an argument there. If it's letting off that much, and you can hold it, then sure.
Yeah, if you can hold it, then
I mean, in that theory, you should be able to shoot like 120-pound elite. You know what I mean? If it's letting off that much, right. As long as you can get it back,
just to get it, just get it to that brief wall, and then she should pop back, but. I think the back wall is an interesting discussion because it was when we started going to the ATA show and started shooting just, basically every flagship bow that anybody had out that would let us shoot it. And it was like, you felt dramatic differences in back walls and in pockets and in humps in the drop. Like I remember, I think, is it Prime that, I mean, you feel like you're going over literally a hill and then you're like, boom, like you're back into that pocket.
I think Prime's got probably the most solid back wall of any now.
Yep. And so like you get into those places and it's like they all feel different. And I don't think unless you shoot every one of them, like you don't know. Like if you've got any kind of rotator cuff issue, any of those ones that you've got to go up over that hill before you fall in the pot are not good. It does not feel good on your arm when you do that.
Yeah. Well, the subtlest difference can make a big deal. Like so, for fun last night I was shooting my RX-7 and my RX-8 just back and forth, literally arrow for arrow, and I was just like curious for differences and stuff like that. And one thing that I noticed was my D loop on my RX-8 is just slightly longer, maybe like
interesting,
maybe like an eighth or as much as a quarter of an inch.
Enough to change the anchor on where you're on your face.
I don't know if it's changing my anchor. It could possibly be, but it is.
That
Enough
back
that I can
wall's
feel
a little
the
bit
difference.
Shorter versus longer, probably.
Yeah, and truthfully, so I mean, I'm obviously super comfortable with where it's at now, and I'm shooting really well with it. But after shooting them apples to apples, like in the vein of what we're talking about, you don't know unless you compare it to something. I may shorten it up just like an eighth of an inch. My just the D loop.
Have you played with on? So you say you have the RX-8?
Yeah. And I know where you're going with that. Yes.
Have you played with on your cam? Have you played with that 75, 80, and 85?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have with that as well.
Okay, yeah.
So, interestingly enough, I'm at 85% let off on both. And so my full journey with that was the first time I messed with it was on the RX-7. I set it to 80 because in my brain, less let off equals more performance. And that generally is true. But you want to have comfortability there too. And it was too much. I was holding too much at 80. So I backed it off to 85, and I said, yeah, that's the sweet spot. So I shot that RX-7 at 85 for a year, and it was awesome. Killed $2 with it last year, and plenty more deer than that. This year, I knew I wanted to start at 85, just because that's where the sweet spot was. But I felt like I was like, man, I almost could try a 29 1/4. draw length, just because they've got that adjustability. I didn't even know that existed before. I was like, and there's been times where I'm like, is 29.5, is it too long? Let's try it.
And then 29.5 or is 30, you don't really have that break, right? So you're either like just too short or just too long. That's where that 1/4 inch draw length adjustments come in handy.
Well, I thought so. And because everybody was raving about it, my uncle was like, a 1/4 inch draw, that's a big deal. I was like, all right, cool. So I just had Tim, my bow tech, set it up at 29.25 at 85% let off at 80 pounds. And it was way too short.
Was it?
Yeah. I drew it back and I was like, there's something wrong here. Like, I was like, are you sure that's 29.25? It was like, that can't be right. So he's like, okay, well, I'll just change it for you real quick, right to 29.5. And I was like, that's it. That's perfect. But
it's crazy what a 1/4 inch will do.
Well, what I was going to say, though, is I do notice that so it is apples to apples. Yeah, you got it there.
We all stayed pretty calm there. Nick was the one who blew it.
Come on, Nick.
Hey, 1/4 inch is a lot.
Hey, I'll take it.
Yeah, it's huge. So I'm basically apples to apples. My RX-7 and RX-8 are both 80 pounds. They're both at 85% let off. My RX-8 it wants to go a little bit more than my RX-7. And in fairness, I don't know the exact draw weight. It's possible that there's like a 2 or 3 pound difference.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what it is. I can't imagine what else would cause that.
Cam system's a little different.
It definitely is a different cam system. But yeah, that's interesting. Because last year, so my RX-7 of last year, 80 pound limbs, I shot and held better with 85% let off. And this bow at 70 pound limbs, I shoot and hold better with 80% let off. So a 5% drop in your let off, because I'm holding more weight with the 70 pound. It's closer to what I shot with the 80 pounds, you know? Because, dude, you 80 pound bow, you adjust that to 75% let off, and that is a dang hold. You're holding a lot of weight back there.
Yeah. And you want to be able to settle in. I mean, you don't want to have to be constantly. That's probably how you know what's the right weight for me, is to where you're not having to think about holding it when it's all the way back.
It's just there. Yeah. I mean, I think the difference too is like what we're all doing now from a shooting situation is a lot different than we're in a tree stand or in a hunting situation. Like you want to be able to hold that damn thing forever in a hunting situation. In a shooting situation, you're gonna pull that shot off pretty quickly.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a big factor in it. But yeah, I mean it is. I think the real thing is you got to get to a bow shop and shoot bows. You've got to experience different bows, different poundages, potentially different let-offs. And I don't think near enough people do that. And you know,
well, it takes a few years. Personally, I think from year to year to year, you know, if you're willing to upgrade your bows every once in a while, it's hard to really nail it the exact first time. I mean, well, you're saying that's the right method. Go in and shoot them all and try to make the best judgment call. But you may not realize what you like or what performs in year one. You know, it's taken 3, 4, or 5 years and upgrades of bows over the course of, you know, since we've been shooting them. Because every time you're like, I want to go a little bit more in this direction. I'm a little bit more comfortable with this, or I want that out of it.
Yeah.
To eventually you find it. Go ahead.
The thing is, too, when somebody invests, you know, X amount of dollars in buying a bow and they have time behind that bow, that's going to be their favorite bow.
Yeah.
Like, this thing's awesome. I love this bow. I mean, how many times have you gone to a range or a 3D shoot or something and talked to somebody about their bow and they're like, dude, this thing's great. This is the best. This is the best. Well, it's because it's the best for them because they've been shooting that bow for so long that they're used to it. They don't know any different, right? Yeah. And they have money invested in it, so they're like, I'm not going to trash this bow that I just spent, you know, $1,300 on. I love this thing.
Neither are we. I don't want to talk trash on somebody's bow, you know. But.
Well, yeah.
But it comes down to, like you said, getting in a bow shop and actually playing with a bunch of different bows. But it's hard to really, really nail down what you like until you've put like quite a few arrows through that bow.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, well, and I think it also comes down to, like, what are you hunting? If you're killing whitetails at 30 yards and in, like, you can kill a lot of different.
Yeah.
You can use a lot of different weapons to do that. A lot of different bows to do that.
There's definitely a financial factor of it too. I mean, that's
huge.
It's funny we don't really talk about it that much because it's like they're all within a range where I'm gonna spend whatever I have to spend to have the best equipment that I can, but. 90% of the guys, I mean, that's a primary consideration. One of the first things you said, well, what's the price difference? They all feel in their same ballpark. So, and Hoyt's up there. I think the carbon bow may be one of the most expensive flagships.
Yeah, versus Alpha X is more in line with like a lift, a Matthews lift. Like those are the two comparables from a price
What's
standpoint.
the price difference?
From
an X to a
carbon?
RX-8?
I think carbon's, 1,800 or something, at least?
Yeah, carbon's like right at 1,800, I think, and then the aluminum, I think, is like 1,350.
Oh wow, it's a big price difference.
Yeah.
Well, and the only real, I mean, you would know, you're shooting them both there, but like, as far as I can tell, the main tangible difference, and it sounds funny, like to be like, oh, what do you mean, cold to the touch thing? But that's it. I mean, that is the difference.
Carbon and aluminum difference you're talking about? Oh yeah,
is the warmth to the touch thing, which. Yeah. If you wear gloves, maybe it's not a big difference, but I don't wear any gloves hunting ever, regardless of the temperature. I'm a hands in the pockets on a hand warmer kind of a guy.
Yep. Yeah, me too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. If a guy is on the fence between like an RX-8 and an Alpha X, and money is a factor, dude, don't be afraid to get that Alpha.
Yeah.
Like the Alpha X is
sweet.
It's the same engine, the same cams. It's got the same cam system. They're both binary cam systems. They're both, dude, they're shooters. Yeah. So it's if it really comes down to it, the aluminum versus the carbon, your aluminum's a great bow, the carbon's a great bow. You can't go wrong with either. But don't think you're like not getting a good bow because you didn't get the carbon.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's an investment for people. I mean, like the average guy is buying a new bow and he's using it for many years, right? It's not like not every other year, every 2 years. Like a lot of us are getting different bows, but the average guy's not doing that.
Sure.
He's buying a bow and that's going to last him for quite a while. So, I mean, from an investment side, that you want to take your time to be able to think about the options and what you have. And again, I think going back to it, just as important is spending time on your arrow setup, because you could have a great bow, but if you've got a shitty arrow setup, you're going to struggle.
Or your tune, you can have the best bow on the market, but if you get it from somebody, I'm not going to call out any big box store in general.
Yeah.
I will say Shields is very good. Usually Shields has pretty decent bow techs. But if you get a bow from a box store and they just bolt on your rest, and then that's all the further it goes, like you might have a bad experience with a really high end bow.
Yeah.
Like your tuning is, because if they didn't go through and synchronize your cams, if they didn't go through and tie in your peep sight where it needs to be tied in, tie a good knock set and D loop, tune your rest, paper tune, whatever out, that stuff takes time. But if none of that is done on a flagship bow, you might have a bow that doesn't shoot that great.
I would assume a lot of people are taking a step out into their backyard with a new bow that is likely not set up correctly. Just, you've got to, we've got really good bow shops that we go to.
Well, it's funny to hear. If you ask them, the techs, a lot of them feel like other people don't set them up right.
Yeah, they usually are getting a bow that wasn't set up
tainted.
Correctly.
They're like,
exactly.
I spend my whole time fixing other people's
there
setups,
you go. So, and I wonder how many people buying a new bow will, are comfortable enough kind of going to somebody and being like, hey, I just bought this brand new bow and it's not set up right. I mean, most of them probably just stuff it down and just shoot it.
Yeah.
Or they don't know. I mean, I think if they think it is a problem, dude, a lot of people are afraid to go to their bow techs or to different shops because, a lot of them are busy and they give that vibe. They're like,
well, it's the pressure. People don't like to shoot in front of each other, which is what's cool about TAC. I mean, there's how many of us around there like watching. Most guys don't like to shoot in front of other. That pressure gets to them, and they don't like it. So in a bow shop scenario, when Tim or whoever is over our shoulder, they don't like that stuff.
Yes, and I also think it's like it takes time to build a relationship. Like that's why I feel so fortunate with Tim at
Sure.
Ultimate Outdoors. Is like I'm going to trust his judgment, but he allows me to question and ask things that I'm trying to learn. I'm like, well, I heard this. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just asking you, what do you think?
Yep.
And he's willing to we have a back and forth, and then we kind of make it choose a direction.
But if you don't have that,
relationship, I think all day long guys are coming into bow shops and they know everything, right? And they're telling their bow tech, this is this, and that's how this works. And they're just like, so the bow techs get jaded, and then they just want to crank bows out and get them done and get them through. And it's just yeah, you really want to try to find a situation where they can slow down and spend time with you. And that's...
Well, to Joel's point, I mean, the tune a bow takes time. And, ultimately, these guys don't charge that much when they tune your bow and stuff outdoor. I mean, they're hoping to sell you a flagship bow and accessories and set it up and arrows to make their margin, right? When you bring them all that stuff in and they just set it up, that's a lot of time for not that much money.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's tough.
They can get you... And even a really, really good bow tech out the door, they can get you, let's say, 90% of the way there with your tune. When you get home and you start shooting, that's when you really, really start fine-tuning and getting the rest of that dialed. You can't spend enough time. I guess you can if you have a bow shop and a bow tech who is a really, really nice guy and is okay with you coming in every day for a week straight. You could probably get something, dialed in pretty dang well.
Yeah.
But for the most part, once you get home and you start shooting, and playing with different arrow setups, if you're getting into hunting season, broadhead setups and stuff, that's where you really find the rest of it, But I don't want to harp on any bow techs because they're helping get everybody in the the space that we all love. But at the same time, it's just, I guess, be conscious that if you buy at a big box store and all they did was slap a rest on the thing and you're out the door, that bow is not tuned. Straight, not even it might be tuned. That bow's not tuned. Go somewhere and get it figured out.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Quest Hunco.
Man, it seems like as technology and social media and stuff just gets incorporated into our daily lives in the deer season more and more, it's we're always looking for ways to just dial it back, spend more quality time with deer hunters, and really make deer hunting and deer camps great again.
Yeah, and I mean, we've all been part of that annual buck pull, whether it's at your camp or the local fire department, and we're trying to bring that feeling back with Quest Hunco to be able to compete against other people in your state, but also be part of a national competition.
You can sign up in as many states as you want. You can sign up with a partner or by yourself to enter deer that at the end are going to get scored, and you have an opportunity to win some big prizes. And there's an in-person banquet in February that Jeremy and I are going to be at where those prizes are going to get held out. I think we're going to do some sort of live podcast or speaking. We'll figure that out. But just looking forward to spending time with people who sign up for the tournament.
Yeah, so you can go to Quest Hunco and sign up. Use the code HUNTR15 at checkout. They'll save you a little bit of money, and then hopefully we'll be able to see you in Missouri in February of 25 at the annual convention.
To make this season a quest. Well, dude, what's because I know we're on time here at some point. What's your what's the premise of your channel, Joe? Joel, can you give us just a kind of a background of what you're about and how you kind of started into things? I know we talked shortly before the podcast, but I'll give you some leash here to tell us what you're about.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. So I started Whitetail Fit back in 2016. Before that, I started bow hunting when I was 12 years old, and I didn't know anybody else who bow hunted. I grew up in the country and, lived on a little small acreage that my parents had, and I'd see deer in the back, the back field and stuff to the neighbors. And I just kind of became interested with them and started reading about them, just magazine articles. And then I started watching, I'd go to, Kmart back in the day and then pick up the VHS tapes, all the Monster Bucks videos and the Drury Outdoors and stuff. And the old school VHS tapes, I started watching that stuff, and I was just like, man, this is, I've got deer in my backyard, and these guys are shooting deer on camera. And then it really came down when I saw guys like Michael Waddell bow hunting. That's when I was like, oh, that's I want to do it with a bow. That's cool, And so went and got my first bow. It was an Alpine Micro. I don't think Alpine is even a company anymore.
I remember them though.
But yeah, old school is an Alpine Micro, is a youth bow. no idea about any of the stuff that we just were talking about. Zero idea about tunes, zero idea about arrows, nothing about broadheads. I didn't even know a trigger release. Like, I had no idea how to shoot one, where to get one, nothing. I just knew a bow and arrow, you can draw it with fingers and you can shoot it. And that's literally, I mean, the first deer that I killed with fingers with a full length Walmart arrow. Mind you, I was like a 25-inch draw length, and I shot a full length. I think they're 30-inch arrows.
Full
30 or
shafting,
31.
baby.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, 30-inch arrows with an
Whitetail
Allen
adrenaline
broadhead,
style.
like $9 for a pack of 3 type Allen broadhead.
Yeah.
And couldn't hit the broadside of a barn at 20 yards, but somehow I double lunged this doe at 28. And after that, I was just completely consumed, right? Just ate up with it. You know, you bring this deer, it's like my dad and I are skinning this deer, you know, in the front yard. We don't know what the heck we're doing. We've been around, you know, livestock, whatever in the past, but it's like, no clue what we're doing. We're just hacking this deer up, putting it in freezer bags, and mom's making stew with it, you know, and the thought in my head as a 12-year-old, I'm like, dude, I'm a provider. Like I'm bringing home the meat, you know? So I just was ate up with hunting early on like that. And then, you know, come to find out, one of my buddies from church, he was quite a bit older than I was, but come to find out he bow hunted. And then we got to talking at church and stuff, and it's like, well, we should go hunting together. And to this day, Wes is still my best hunting buddy to this day. And he lives in Alabama now. I'm in Nebraska. He's got a family going on, and he has his own dentistry and stuff. And every single year we make sure that we do 2 or 3 hunts together. And so the passion just grew from that. And like I say, I didn't know anybody who bow hunted when I started. So the passion kind of stemmed from video, from you know, consuming content.
Yep.
And I always, in the back of my head, I always knew, like, I want to film. I want to put this stuff out, like, at least for my family to see. And like, cause nobody in my family hunted. So I'm like, guys, look how cool this is. You know, it's fun. And, you know, I've got 3 older brothers, and I'm always, you know, I'm going out hunting and stuff. And I'm like, guys, you know, so anyway, that's kind of where it started, was like, I wanted to share it with my family and show them video, and then progressed from that. And obviously 2016 was where I started the brand. And, you know, I still am very passionate about bow hunting and very passionate about fitness. Do you need to be fit to hunt whitetail? No, absolutely not. Like, I know a lot of people who are in not amazing shape who are straight killers. Does it help? Absolutely. Like, is it a necessity? It kind of gets broken up, because I've had people like, oh, you think you need to be jacked to hunt whitetail? I'm like, no, that is not the premise of like the brand. It just started out with, I love whitetail hunting and I love fitness. And like, that was the name that got put together.
Well, and does it make it more enjoyable? Absolutely.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And that's where I kind of want to, I guess I'm trying to be like, I'm not trying to exclude anybody from hunting whitetail just because they might be 30, 40 pounds overweight. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, if anything, I want to encourage them to live a healthy lifestyle and, you know, enjoy their life a little bit more and, you know, feel good about doing it. And so anyway, but when it comes to diving into the Western hunts, which I really got into deep, I definitely caught the Western bug after I'd already started Whitetail Fit. I'd gone and done like a antelope hunt out in Western Nebraska and stuff. But my first real taste of like Western bow hunting was, do you guys know the Hush Boys, like B-Mac, Casey, and Eric? So I went out, became friends through just social media, meeting them at Total Archery Challenge in Utah and stuff, and became pretty close friends with Eric. And Eric invited me out to go hunt high country mule deer with him in Utah. And I was like, oh, heck, like, this is going to be, dude, from a fitness standpoint, I came into that hunt like basically coming off like a bodybuilding type split of workout, where I'm like, I was heavy, like for my frame, I was like 174 pounds going into that hunt, and I'm only 5'7". So like my sweet spot is 165 to 170. That's my sweet spot for weight.
Dang, how tall are you?
I'm fairly lean.
5'7".
5'7".
Oh, you guys are so short, man. All you really jacked guys.
So short.
You got that Tom Cruise build.
Here's the ticket to it. the guys who look the most jacked, they're probably fairly short because our muscle bellies, like we have fairly short muscle bellies. So we
Muscle
look,
bellies.
Yeah.
yeah, we look like we look yoked, but we're so short, dude.
Well, that's like you're saying your
yeah.
sweet spot is 160. I'm like, dude, I'm trying to get sub 2 hundo here.
Yeah,
Jeremy's
exactly.
You're
No,
6
it's
foot,
funny
6'1"?
Nah, like 5'11.
5'11"?
Yeah.
I'm 5'11" and 3/4.
Yeah, but going into that mule deer hunt, I was like, it put me on a new radar of like, there's different levels of being in shape. There's like the, heavy muscle
Yep.
level, and then there's like a cardio endurance level. And that's where I'm at now, is like just being in way better cardio shape and being able to handle those high endurance hunts. Before, dude, I went into that hunt and I'm like, what in the world is this? Like, it tested me for sure.
Dude, I think that as you were explaining earlier, like incorporating fitness into like a hunting lifestyle and stuff, I think that it is, see if I can like kind of put this into words here. Like it is, it's such a great motivator, if and it doesn't have to be hunting. Like I think kids will do it for people, or a spouse, some sort of like, typically there's something that motivates somebody to be, or to get into better physical shape. And so and I can relate. So for me, it's hunting. And really it was some of those Western hunts. It was like the mule deer hunts and stuff where we started to like, even though they were fairly low barrier to entry, it was like the Dakotas. It's like, hey, we're just going into the Badlands.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be able to pack the thing out, and I wanted to be like peak physical fitness to be able to do that. And I came from, if you want to call it like a bodybuilding type of a background, or like the reason, the motivation to lift was to have big muscles, basically.
Right.
And so, and you'd lift accordingly. I neglected cardio for half of my life for years. I didn't do, because, and I'm your same age, and to this day, my metabolism is like, a rocket ship. So it's like, to look muscular, I don't have to do any cardio, but for sure, I mean, I got humbled a few times, like whether it was on a mule deer hunt or an elk hunt prior to that. I was like, dude, I'm just not that, I can't really do that much with this. I was like, I'm big, but I can't like, and so I started incorporating, in fact, it was over COVID when the gym shut down. It took that off the table. I was like, I don't have heavy dumbbells and stuff to be able to pick up at home.
Yeah.
So, but from a mental sanity standpoint, I was like, I have to be doing something here. So I got into yoga. And I would just do it on the back deck. And there was there's a channel called not Hustle and Flow. I watched that movie the other day. It's called Breathe and Flow. That's a great movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Breathe and Flow is what the channel's called. And the dude's name is Flow, or I don't know if that's like his yogi name or whatever. But there's a few things on there. It's just like basic, it's like yoga for men is how like I came across the thing here. And I was like, there's only 2 videos that I ever did. And I did them with a lot of consistency and stuff and focus, and I really got good at like what was being taught there. They're both like hour and a half long deals. One is upper body strength, and it's like all upper body, and then one is lower body yoga for jiu-jitsu type training. So it's lower body flexibility and mobility.
Sure.
And so I did that for those first like couple years, like a year or two of COVID. And then when the gym started to open back up, I would apply the breathing exercises that I had learned. But that's the main thing that you take from yoga, I think, is like how to breathe through and tolerate like uncomfortable positions, like all, through doing something strenuous. And so now like my gym session looks much more like my breathing is like what carries me through it, as far as like hyperoxygenating your blood before an exercise, and also incorporation of cardio via, what I do is rucking. So I go to just like a Planet Fitness, like a regular gym everybody else is at, but I put 100 pounds in a Kuiu pack on my back, and I get on the stepper, and I alternate every other step or every step. And so it's like some combination of that, and it varies from week to week, is like, dude, I can take a full breath at all times. Physically, I'm like muscular, like to where I want to be. But from a like usability, like a functionality standpoint and stuff, it's like that rucking is what really is what does it for me.
Yeah. And I focused very heavily the last 5-6 years on So when I come out of hunting season, typically with all the travel, all the Western hunts and everything, typically I come out of hunting season
Yeah.
kind of depleted.
Yeah.
I'm like you, where like
Me too.
my metabolism is just firing on 10 all the time.
Yeah.
So when I get through hunting season, I'll come out maybe like 160 or so, and I've lost some muscle. Like I'm just kind of depleted, right? So after hunting season, I kind of get back on more of like in the bodybuilding scene, it would be like a bulk, right?
Mhm.
Where I'm consuming more calories, 4,000 calories a day or so, and lifting more traditional lifts, arm day, leg day, chest day, that type of thing. Then when I get to around like May time frame, that's when I'll start switching and transitioning into more of like more of a cardio endurance base, where I'm trying to now I've built that a little bit of muscle back, not a ton, because it takes a very long time to actually build like
Lean muscle.
muscle weight, right? So but I've kind of gotten back what I lost over season, and then I start transitioning into getting my cardio back up, getting my endurance back up. And then the closer I get to hunting season, end of mid-July, end of July or so, that's when I really, really start ramping up that high intensity, high heart rate. Like this is where that backpack headed up the mountain. This is where you're gonna either make or break type situation. Whether you could be chasing an elk that just crossed over the next ridge, and you've got to get to that point in X amount of time. You can't stop and put your hands on your knees and be gasping for breath because that bull's moving and you're not, type situation. And the entire way through, I'm also very focused on injury prevention. So doing a lot of stretching, a lot of band work and stuff. The older I get, the more I try to focus on injury prevention, because I've slipped a disc on my back twice with deadlifts, and it's nothing against deadlifts. Like it's a great movement for certain people, but for me and my application, like I have a really hard time looking at a deadlift bar and being like, that's going to be productive for my situation.
Did
right?
you know what I really like?
So I do a lot of different type.
You know what I really like, Joel, in lieu of deadlifting is just hyperextensions. You know what those are?
Just like keeping your legs straight and going straight down with your dumbbells?
In the machine, where you can lock your lower body in and then use your upper body. I like those.
That makes sense. Yeah, there's one thing that I've really been doing this summer a lot of is like, it is kind of a CrossFit style. So I take little snippets from like every style of, I guess, lifting or workout that you will. Like I'll do some things that's just strictly strength and conditioning. I'll do some things that's more of a bodybuilding split, and I'll do some things that's like a CrossFit style or cardio style. And one thing I've really been liking is like AMRAPs, as many rounds as possible for a certain duration of time, and implementing like 3 or 4 different workouts for that 15 minutes, and you bust out as many as you possibly can, like no breaks. You are running through that thing. And then I'll split that out with like 5 rounds for time. So then I'll do 5 rounds of something else for, and get it as fast as I can. And that's just a good way to, and I run like a Garmin watch, so I can really monitor my heart rate, monitor my time, obviously, and how many calories are being exerted. And I like doing that type of stuff just because it gives me baseline, and it gives me something to know what to build off of and what to work off of. Like just like running does. My brother has been running quite a bit more this past year, and he's been seeing those incremental gains in where he might have started running like a 12-minute mile. Well, now he's up to every single time he goes running, he keeps monitoring exactly his heart rate and everything that's going, and he's dialing in like from a 12-minute mile down to I can't remember what his fastest mile was, but he's a very, like, he can run like a high 7-minute mile, very consistent, and keep after it and keep going. And it's like that's impressive in order to build that, but it takes time, and that's, for me, it's just utilizing my off season. The second season is over, utilizing each one of those months as kind of a different split and a different style to get myself to where under pressure, under high heart rate, I'm going to be able to actually perform how I need to perform.
There's definitely a seasonality to it. I mean, just like, you know, I like to think I'm like a mature buck. I'm going through like my velvet growing stage, or I'm like at the end of my rut stage, you know, and mine's very, very similar to yours. You know, it's like by the end of season, it's undoubtedly I've slacked off and I've eaten too many, you know, Milky Way bars in the stand and stuff like that. But and then
100%.
January, February starts knocking on your door, and I'm like, dude, mentally I need to like get right again. And then you get obsessed with it again, and then by midsummer you're like, you know, raging out and ready to
peak form,
ready to start hunting again. But did I hear you say during bulking season you're only eating 4,000 calories a day?
Yep.
Dude, that's why you're only 5'7", like 8 or 10.
Yeah, 4,000's like
that's one meal.
Oh, Lord. 4,000?
Yeah. Come on,
dude,
bro.
How much food are you eating, bro?
A lot.
Dang, that's wild. Yeah, 4,000 calories. Like for me, if you base off like a 2,000 calorie diet day or whatever, for me to actually, like, just naturally, I burn a lot. Like I say, my metabolism's through the roof, but for me to actually start putting on a little bit of muscle, I have to be over that like 3,500 to 4,000 threshold.
Yeah, I could have told you that. Well, here's the other thing: is I don't count. So.
Oh Lord, dude. Okay, so
there's your problem: is you're keeping track. Just eat until you can't eat anymore.
If you track your calories and actually eat 8,000 calories a day, I will pay you $1,000.
He probably does eat 8,000.
I'm not right now, but I know for a fact.
Not every day.
When I'm intentional about it, yeah, it would be. I'd shoot for 8 to 10.
Holy crap, dude.
Yeah.
Well, young bucks, wait till you get old and the metabolism starts slowing down.
Your body will tell you too.
Then you got to figure it out.
Your body will tell you when you're lifting heavy and you're pushing it. You can't get enough.
Yeah, yeah. And that was a big thing too for me. Like early on with stocking my freezers and stuff, just living on my own when I was 18, 19 years old. Dude, all I ate was deer meat. Well, deer meat is chocked full of protein, like chocked full, and I loved it. I ate it for as many meals as I possibly could every day. And that helped a lot too with like, cause when I graduated high school, I was tiny, dude. I was 5'7", but I was 128 pounds. Like I was small, you know, and now building up to where I am now, obviously, you know, putting muscle weight on and stuff over the years, but it's been gradual, but it's been continuous. But yeah, nutrition side, I probably could do better with, not eating as much junk food during the hunting season, but dude, it is so hard when you pass that Casey's gas station and they got that breakfast pizza.
I'm gonna tell you what, dude. I don't stray from it, man. You got the metabolism for it. I'll eat Casey's. I'll even throw a Bear Claw in there. I'll do. I'm not on a diet. My diet is eat as much as I can, and
the diet's go hard
and outlift it.
You'll only be able to outrun that for so long.
Maybe.
Yeah, at some point it catches. You know, I haven't so much as felt like the metabolism by any means catching up, but I've felt like my joints I don't feel like I'm 20 anymore with my joints.
Really?
It's just waking up. So I did concrete for 13 years prior to
that'll do it
to doing this, right? So concrete was like one of those things where, you know, flat work concrete finishing, you're on your knees all day, your lower back hurts, your shoulders hurt, your elbows hurt, everything hurts. Like, and coming from that, going into what I'm doing now, it just becomes more like I'm more cognitive of my like, again, going back to not getting hurt, like injury prevention. I'm way more conscious of like what's going on there than I ever have been. And I hope that continues into my older age and I don't do something stupid and, you know, hurt myself with, you know, overexerting on workouts and stuff like that. But I just want to, my ultimate goal is be 75 years old, still chasing elk with a bow. That's my ultimate goal. I want to hunt as long as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Agree. Cool, man. Well, dude, we appreciate you coming on and talking with us. That was fun to get to know you and really just shoot the shit, basically.
We'll do another one. This one was kind of off the cuff here, so it was a good intro, and we'll plan for another one into season.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, I appreciate you guys having me on. I've listened to a few of your episodes, and you guys got some good stuff. Keep it going.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it, man.
Will do.
HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Pure Wildlife Blends.
Yeah, buddy. We're doing a lot of food plots this year. It seems like the planning, the preparation, like the coordinating for getting everything, in the ground, it's like it just never ends.
Yeah, and I just got off an 18-hour bender where I'm on multiple farms getting everything ready. But this year, fortunately, we've got Pure Wildlife Blends, which is Jeff Sturgis. Who better to partner with for our food plot program than a guy who's got 30 years of experience, been on thousands of farms. I mean, the guy lives and breathes food plots.
Yeah, and so the blends themselves are all handpicked by Jeff, and it's like, man, we've had a lot of conversations with him over the years, and he's been pretty influential in how we set up farms and stuff. And frankly, the product, it's in the name, it's Pure Wildlife Blend. So a lot of these other seeds that you see that are blue and orange or all these things, it's because they're coated with lime and they're dyed, and it's marketing at the end of the day. So we have a lot of confidence in the seeds that Jeff has chose, and that's what we're going to be planting this year. And so right now, you can use code HUNTR10 for 10% off anything on the website.
So if you're looking for switch, clover, brassica, or Jeff's favorite, layer in the rye.
Layer in the rye.
Yep, check out purewildlifeblends.com. And awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it's fun stuff. I mean, obviously, I would say he's probably more of a gearhead on the bow side than we are. It's like put it in our hand and let us kill with it. But it's good to talk through some of that stuff, and especially getting into just thinking about what you're going after. Interesting, he's got multiple setups depending on what he's going after, and I guess
I know Bo did that too. I think just for for comparison's sake,
Yeah, no, it makes sense, but. Yeah, it's cool, man. I mean, you just keep finding people. Next time we get them in, we'll have to talk Nebraska a little bit more, because I think non-residents have to draw there now for, I think, muleys, which is a new one, and some other stuff on that side. And so it'll be interesting to kind of hear on that end of what he gets into.
Yeah, I want to talk nuts and bolts too of fitness. Like, I think that a lot of people have questions around. What exactly are you doing? Whether anybody you see that's like in physically good shape and stuff. It's maybe I take it for granted just because I had good influence growing up. I worked out with certain people and I learned stuff that today I'm just like, it's second nature. It's just what you do, and then you figure out your body will tell you probably how to expand on workouts and what you can handle and stuff.
For sure.
But we can probably fast track that for some people. So.
Yeah, you start getting my age, you just got to get your blood work checked, which I did just the other day. Testosterone, check.
On point?
On point.
Yeah.
No low T here.
I could have told you that. Yeah, solid T.
Solid T. So, but yeah, I mean, that's the stuff. I got to work on my cholesterol a little bit. Starting to get a little bit high, but yeah, just more veggies, more salmon.
You think more veggie? What do you hear about all this? You hear people saying like, hey, I mean, veggies carry a lot of toxins and stuff.
I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty regimental, and like I eat a lot of venison, I eat a lot of salmon, and I eat a lot of chicken. Like that's just my go-to. I mean, not that I won't eat steak and stuff. I do, but like those are kind of like my go-tos, I guess, throughout the week.
Okay.
But like I don't know. I mean,
Where do you get your salmon from?
Aldi's.
Yeah. I saw a video of how salmon, like if you don't cook it correctly, it gets. And I just can't do the salmon anymore.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I
used to eat a lot of salmon, not so much anymore.
Like 15 ounces last night. It's perfect.
Yep. Tasty for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, that's the difference between us. Like even though like obviously when we're traveling and stuff, I'll eat. Sucks. I gotta eat what you eat. But like I mean, my metabolism isn't there anymore, so I gotta.
You've noticed it slow, like a lot, really?
Yeah, and I mean, I've changed my running routine to be more sprints and lifting. So I knew I was kind of going to put on some weight. Now I'll end up cutting down a little bit to come back out of it. But yeah, I mean, I can't eat what I used to eat.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not even the weight as much as like my blood results will go, like cholesterol goes up, like things go in the direction they're not supposed to go, which, when I was 30, like didn't happen.
Right.
So unless I drank a lot, which
beer's what does it for me. Yeah, I feel like literally next day.
Yeah.
Your body will tell you. I mean, I can literally like the next day after I eat, like if I have beer or ice cream or things that are like just straight fat or sugar, I'm like, ooh. There it is.
I try to keep myself. I feel like I do a good job throughout the year, but I try to keep myself in check. I get blood work once a year, so that way I can just kind of compare. And I'm like, I kind of knew this was gonna go this way, or I wasn't as strict on this or whatever. But yeah, and I don't necessarily have to, but it's good to kind of see where you're at basis wise.
For sure.
So cool. Anyways, we appreciate everyone listening to episode 190 with Joel Burham from Whitetail Fit, and we'll catch y'all next week.
Later.
Take me